They called her Barbie with a med kit behind her back. To her face, they called her worse. What they didn't know, Scarlet Vaughn had been waiting 18 years for this assignment, and she knew exactly who killed her father. The March sun beat down on Naval Amphibious Base Coronado with the kind of heat that made asphalt shimmer, and SEALs sweat through their camis before noon. Scarlet stood at the gate, her sea bag slung over one shoulder, orders clutched in her other hand. 28 years old, 5'3", 118 pounds soaking wet. Auburn hair pulled back so tight it made her green eyes look even sharper. Freckles across her nose that made her look younger than she was. She looked like she belonged on a California beach with a surfboard, not at the most elite special operations compound in the world. The Marine Guard checked her ID 3 times. "Lieutenant Vaughn," he said, doubt bleeding through every syllable. "You sure you got the right place, ma'am? SEAL Team 5 is—" "I know where SEAL Team 5 is, Corporal." Her voice cut clean as a scalpel. "I've known for 18 years. She walked through the gate before he could respond. The compound sprawled before her like a small city dedicated to violence. Obstacle courses that would break most men. Shooting ranges where the bark of gunfire never stopped. Buildings that looked ordinary from outside, but held secrets that could topple governments. And everywhere, men. Big men. Hard men. Men who'd seen things in dark places that would shatter civilian minds like dropped glass. Scarlet had seen darker. She reported to Building 7, the administrative hub for Team 5. The air conditioning hit her like a cold slap. Inside, the walls were covered with plaques and photos. Deployment rosters, fallen brothers. A memorial wall with names etched in black granite. She found her father's name without looking. 3rd row, 7th from the left. Senior Chief Petty Officer Roland Vaughn, SEAL Team 3, died in service. Ramadi, Iraq, April 4th, 2006. She was 10 years old when they told her. She remembered the Marine officer with his pressed uniform and rehearsed sympathy. She remembered her grandfather Yuri's face, stone-hard and knowing, seeing through the lie even then. She remembered the blood on her father's K-bar knife when they returned his personal effects. Too much blood, wrong pattern, not from combat. "Can I help you, ma'am?" Scarlet turned. A petty officer first class stood behind the desk, name tape reading Kozlowski. Big guy, 6'2", maybe 230, Polish features, thick neck, the kind of shoulders that came from years of carrying heavy gear through bad places. Early 30s, young enough to think he was invincible, old enough to have seen real action. His eyes traveled from her face down to her boots and back up. Slow, deliberate, the kind of look that said he'd already made every judgment that mattered. "Lieutenant Vaughn," she said, placing her orders on the desk. "Hospital corpsman, reporting for assignment to medical bay." Kozlowski picked up the orders like they might be contaminated. Read them again. Then he turned and called over his shoulder. "Torres! Walsh! You gotta see this!" 2 more SEALs emerged from a back office. Torres, 2nd class, Hispanic surname but light features, lean and wiry like a middleweight boxer. Walsh, 3rd class, Irish descent written all over his freckled face and red blonde hair. Both younger than Kozlowski, both wearing the same expression when they saw Scarlet. Amusement, disbelief, contempt. "They sent us a medic," Kozlowski said, holding up her orders like evidence at a trial. "Check it out, Barbie with a med kit." Torres whistled low. "Damn, she's gonna cry, first time she sees real blood." "Bet she don't make it through first week," Walsh added. "Money says she requests transfer before Friday." Scarlet said nothing. She'd learned young that silence was its own kind of weapon. Let them talk. Let them think they knew her. Every word they spoke told her exactly who they were. Small men pretending to be big. "Your assignment sheet says Medical Bay, Level 2, Kozlowski said, tossing her orders back across the desk. "Good luck with that, Barbie. Try not to break a nail." Scarlet picked up her orders. held his gaze for 3 long seconds, long enough to make it uncomfortable, long enough to let him see that she wasn't afraid, wasn't intimidated, wasn't anything but coldly, professionally focused. Then she turned and walked away. Behind her, she heard Torres, "Jesus, did you see her eyes? Ice cold." "She won't last," Kozlowski repeated, but there was less certainty in his voice now. The medical bay was on level 2, down a corridor that smelled like disinfectant and old coffee. The door was propped open. Inside, chaos. Supplies stacked in no logical order. Equipment that hadn't been inventoried in months. Trauma kits missing basic components. A refrigerator full of medications, half of them expired. Protocol manuals from 2019, outdated by 5 years of updated combat medicine. It was a disaster. It was also exactly what she expected. Scarlet dropped her sea bag and got to work. 4 hours later, the bay was transformed. Supplies organized by trauma priority. Airway, breathing, circulation. Equipment inventoried and logged. Expired meds disposed of properly. New protocol manuals downloaded and printed. A system that would save lives instead of wasting critical seconds. She was labeling the last supply drawer when a voice spoke from the doorway. "Impressive." Scarlet turned. The man in the doorway was late 50s, maybe 60. 6 feet tall, 215, most of it still muscle despite the gray creeping through his close-cropped hair. Ice blue eyes that had seen too much. A scar across his jaw that looked like it came from a knife, not shrapnel. He wore the uniform of a Navy commander, chest full of ribbons that told a story of 3 decades in the worst places on Earth. His name tape read, Morrison. Scarlet's heart stopped. She knew this man. Not personally, not yet, but she knew him the way you know family you've never met. Commander Thaddeus Bull Morrison, her father's best friend. The man who'd carried a 10-year-old girl away from her father's casket when she wouldn't stop screaming. The man who'd sent cards every year on her birthday, always signed the same way. "Your dad would be proud. Stay strong, Bull." The man who'd promised her father he'd watch over his daughter. Morrison stepped into the bay, eyes scanning the organized supplies, the updated protocols, the professional efficiency that spoke to serious training. "Lieutenant Scarlet Vaughn," he said, not a question. "Roland's daughter." "Yes, sir. Last time I saw you, you were 22. Your father's second funeral, the private one, just family." His voice was rough gravel, worn smooth of shouting orders over gunfire. "You've grown up." "Yes, sir." He moved closer, studying her face, looking for something, finding it. "You have his eyes," Morrison said quietly. "Same green, same intensity, like you're seeing through people instead of at them." Scarlet said nothing. Morrison glanced at the organized bay again. "This is good work, professional. Most corpsmen take a week to get oriented. You did it in 4 hours." "I don't like wasting time, Commander." "Neither did your father." Morrison's jaw tightened. "Cat, that's what Roland called you, right? After you kept bringing home stray cats when you were little?" "Yes, sir." "Cat, you shouldn't be here." The words hung in the air between them. Not hostile, almost pleading. "With all due respect, Commander," Scarlet said, her voice steady as a laser sight, "I'm exactly where I need to be." Morrison studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly, like a man accepting an unwelcome truth. "Your grandfather called me," he said. 6 months ago, Yuri, he was dying, wanted to talk. "You know what he told me?" Scarlet waited. "He said, 'She will hunt the man who killed her father. You must protect her. It's all she has left.'" Morrison's eyes locked onto hers. He was right, wasn't he? You're not here to be a medic. You're here for something else. Scarlet held his gaze. "I'm here to serve, Commander, whatever the Navy needs." "Bullshit." The word came out flat and hard. "You're here because of Ramadi, April 4th, 2006, the day your father died. The day the official report says an IED took out his Humvee during a patrol near Route, Michigan." That's what the report says, sir. The report is a lie. Morrison's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. And we both know it. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Somewhere in the building, a door slammed. Footsteps in the corridor outside. Normal bass sounds. But inside this room, the air felt thick enough to choke on. You know something? Scarlet said, not a question. Morrison walked to the door, checked the corridor, closed it. When he turned back, he looked older, tired, like a man carrying weight that was finally breaking him. Your father came to me the night before he died, Morrison said. April 3rd, late. He found me in my quarters at Camp Ramadi. He was agitated, scared. I'd never seen Roland scared, not in 12 years of friendship, not through 3 deployments, but that night, he was terrified. What did he tell you? Equipment audit didn't match. 47 night vision units signed out for the company, only 31 in inventory. He checked twice, asked the Master Chief about it, got told it was combat losses, normal attrition. But there were no after-action reports, no lost documentation, nothing. Scarlet's hands had gone very still. Who was the Master Chief? Senior Chief Wade Garrett. Morrison's face was carved granite. Same man who's Master Chief for Team 5 right now. Same man who's retiring in 3 weeks with full honors and a fat pension. The name hit Scarlet like a fist to the solar plexus. She'd known, suspected, spent years gathering fragments of information, building a picture in the dark. But hearing it confirmed, hearing the actual name spoken out loud, that was different. That made it real. What did you tell my father? She asked. I told him to wait, gather more proof. Don't make accusations without evidence. I said we'd go to the CO together, build a proper case. Morrison's voice cracked. I told him to be careful, to watch his back. And the next day? The next day, his patrol hit an IED en route Michigan. Official story. Except I was there when they brought his body back. Morrison's eyes had gone distant, seeing something 18 years gone. There was no IED damage, no blast pattern, no fragmentation wounds, just a single gunshot wound, entry at the base of the skull, posterior angle. 5.56 millimeter, M4 carbine round. American weapon. American weapon, Morrison confirmed. Shot from behind, close range, execution style. Scarlet's breathing had gone shallow. She'd known this. Grandfather Yuri had told her when she was 16, showing her the autopsy report he'd obtained through connections most people didn't ask about. Former NKVD interrogators had networks that didn't die just because the Soviet Union did. But hearing it from Morrison, from someone who'd been there, who'd seen her father's body, that cut different. Why didn't you report it? She asked. I tried. Morrison's laugh was bitter as bile. Filed a request for investigation. Got shut down within 24 hours. Orders came from CENTCOM. Case closed. Combat death. No further inquiry needed. I pushed back. Got told to drop it or face charges for interfering with wartime operations. Someone protected Garrett. Someone high up. Someone with enough juice to bury an investigation at the command level. Morrison moved to the window, looking out at the compound. SEALs running drills in the distance. I spent 18 years trying to figure out who. Built a case file, piece by piece. Every deployment where Garrett was present. Every suspicious equipment loss. Every friendly fire incident that didn't quite add up. He turned back to face her. I've got 247 pages of evidence, Kat. All circumstantial. Nothing that would stand up in court. Nothing that proves he killed Roland. But I know he did it, and I think you know it too. Scarlet's voice came out steady. How long have you known I'd come here? Since the day you applied for this assignment. I saw your name on the transfer request. Knew exactly why. Morrison crossed his arms. I could have blocked it. Should have. Your grandfather was right. You're hunting Garrett. And if he realizes that, you're dead. Just like your father. Then help me prove it. I am helping you. I'm ordering you to request a transfer. Today. Get out of here while you still can. No. The word hung between them like a thrown knife. Morrison's jaw worked. You're as stubborn as Roland. I'm worse. Scarlet stepped closer. Commander, you've spent 18 years building a case. You said it yourself, all circumstantial, nothing concrete. You know why? Why? Because you're working from outside. You're trying to catch him making mistakes. But Garrett's careful. He's been running this operation for decades. He doesn't make mistakes. Her eyes were cold emerald. But I can make him. How? By being exactly what he thinks I am. A pretty girl playing medic. Daddy's daughter on a guilt assignment. Harmless. Naive. Unthreatening. Scarlet's smile was sharp as broken glass. Let him underestimate me. Let him think I'm no danger. And when he feels safe, when he drops his guard, that's when I strike. Morrison studied her for a long time. Your grandfather taught you more than first aid, didn't he? Grandfather Yuri was a partisan fighter in Ukraine during World War II, NKVD interrogator after. He defected in 1975, but he never stopped being what the war made him. Scarlet's voice was matter-of-fact. He taught me Sistema from the time I could walk. Russian martial art. How to fight multiple opponents. How to disarm someone with a knife. How to kill silently, if necessary. Jesus Christ. He also taught me how to read people. How to see through lies. How to be patient. She met Morrison's eyes. I was 10 years old when the Marine officer told me my father died in an IED. I knew he was lying. I saw it in his eyes, the rehearsed sympathy, the too smooth delivery. I knew, even then, that someone murdered my dad. And you've been planning this for 18 years. Every day. Scarlet's voice was soft now, almost gentle. Medical school, Navy commission, combat trauma certification, Russian martial arts, weapons training, languages. Every skill I built, every choice I made, all of it was aimed at this moment, at being ready for this assignment. Morrison shook his head slowly. Roland wanted you to have a normal life. He told me once, if anything happened to him, I should make sure you stayed away from the military, that you went to college, got married, had kids. A safe life. He should have thought about that before he raised me to believe in honor and duty. Scarlet's voice hardened. He should have thought about that before he taught me that some things are worth dying for. He lived by a code, Commander, and that code got him killed. The least I can do is make sure his death means something. By getting yourself killed too? By getting justice. Morrison was silent for a moment. Then he walked to the door, checked the corridor again, and returned to stand very close to Scarlet. If we do this, he said quietly, we do it smart. No cowboy shit, no revenge fantasies. We build a case that'll hold up in court. We get evidence that can't be buried. And we stay alive long enough to see Garrett in prison. We? You think I'm letting Roland's daughter hunt a killer alone? Morrison's voice was rough. I made a promise. I keep my promises. Scarlet felt something loosen in her chest, something she hadn't realized was clenched tight. Thank you, Commander. Don't thank me yet. This gets ugly. We're both going down. He pulled out his phone, typed quickly, then showed her the screen. This is my personal cell. You see anything, hear anything, you contact me immediately. You don't take risks. You don't go off alone. You don't trust anyone except me. Clear? Clear. And for God's sake, be careful around Garrett. He's not stupid. He survived this long because he's smart and paranoid. Morrison pocketed his phone. He'll be watching you, testing you, looking for any sign that you're a threat. I can handle it. Can you? Morrison's eyes were hard. Can you look at the man who murdered your father and smile? Can you be professional while he's standing 3 feet away? Can you keep that ice-cold control when every instinct is screaming to put a bullet in his skull? Scarlet thought about it, really thought about it, Imagine standing face to face with Wade Garrett, the man who'd taken everything from her, the man who'd shot her father in the back of the head and walked away clean. Could she do it? Yes, she said. I can. Morrison searched her face, found whatever he was looking for, nodded. Then let's get to work. He moved to leave, then paused at the door. One more thing. Those 3 SEALs who gave you shit earlier, Kozlowski, Torres, Walsh. They're young, stupid, but they're not bad men. Don't judge them too harshly. I don't judge anyone, Commander. I just observe. Morrison smiled slightly. You really do have Roland's eyes. After he left, Scarlet stood alone in the medical bay. The organized supplies, the updated protocols, the professional efficiency that would save lives. She was good at her job, really good. 8 years of training had made her one of the best combat medics in the Navy. She could perform a cricothyrotomy in 30 seconds, could pack a gunshot wound that would keep a man alive long enough to reach surgery, could manage a mass casualty situation with the calm of a seasoned trauma surgeon. But that wasn't why she was here. She walked to her sea bag, unzipped the side pocket, and pulled out a small wooden box. Inside, wrapped in oiled cloth, was her father's K-bar knife. 7 inches of carbon steel, handle worn smooth by years of use. The blade still had rust-brown stains near the hilt, blood that had never been cleaned. She'd kept it exactly as it was returned to her, evidence of a crime no one would investigate. Until now. Scarlet rewrapped the knife, returned it to the box, locked it in her personal locker. Then she pulled out her laptop and got to work. If Morrison had 247 pages of evidence, she wanted to see all of it. But more than that, she wanted to start her own investigation. Fresh eyes, different angle. She'd spent 8 years in naval intelligence before transferring to medical. She knew how to access databases that most people didn't know existed. She started with equipment audits. SEAL Team 5 passed 24 months. Every piece of gear signed out, every item returned, every loss reported. The discrepancies jumped out immediately. Night vision devices, 83 signed out, 51 in inventory, 32 unaccounted for. Listed as combat losses, but no corresponding after-action reports. Body armor, 47 plates issued, 31 present, 16 missing. Again, combat losses with no documentation. Weapons, 12 M4A1 carbines signed out for training exercises. 9 returned. 3 listed as damaged beyond repair, but no damage reports filed. The pattern was clear, consistent, professional. Someone was stealing military equipment. High-value items that would bring serious money on the black market. Night vision worth 20 grand per unit. Body armor, 5 grand a plate. M4 carbines, 2 grand each if you knew the right buyers. Scarlet did the math. Conservative estimate, based on 2 years of data, $8.3 million in stolen equipment. And the man who controlled all equipment inventory was Senior Chief Wade Garrett. She dug deeper, cross-referenced Garrett's deployment history with equipment losses across other SEAL teams. The pattern held. Everywhere Garrett went, gear vanished. Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, training rotations stateside, 28 years of theft, millions of dollars, all carefully documented as legitimate losses. Except her father had noticed, had started asking questions, and 24 hours later, he was dead. Scarlet's hands were steady as she compiled the data. Emotionless, clinical. This was what grandfather Yuri had trained her for. The ability to separate feeling from function. To do what needed doing without letting rage cloud judgment. She worked for 3 hours straight, building spreadsheets, cross-referencing databases, establishing timelines. When she finally looked up, the sun had set. The base had gone quiet. Just the hum of ventilation and distant sounds of the night watch. A knock at the door made her look up. Senior Chief Wade Garrett stood in the doorway. Scarlet's heart rate didn't change. Her breathing stayed steady. Years of training held. She looked at the man who'd murdered her father and felt nothing but cold, professional focus. Garrett was 58 but looked younger. 6 feet tall, 190, blonde hair going gray at the temples. Tanned face with smile lines that made him look trustworthy, friendly. The kind of guy you'd want on your team. The kind of senior NCO that junior sailors looked up to. A wolf in sheep's clothing. "Lieutenant Vaughn," he said, his voice warm and welcoming. "Saw the light on. Wanted to introduce myself. Senior Chief Garrett. I run the equipment bay, handle inventory and logistics." He extended his hand. Scarlet stood, moved around the desk and shook it. His grip was firm but not aggressive. Professional. "Sir," she said, "good to meet you. Heard you did some impressive work reorganizing this bay. 4 hours, everything squared away. That's efficient." Garrett glanced around, nodding approval. "We can use that kind of initiative. Too many sailors these days want everything handed to them. Nice to see someone with work ethic." "Thank you, Senior Chief. Call me Wade. We're not that formal around here." He leaned against the doorframe, casual and relaxed. "I knew your father, Roland Vaughn. Good man, hell of a SEAL. I was sorry to hear about Ramadi." Scarlet's face didn't change. "Did you serve with him?" "Iraq, 2006. Same deployment, different teams, but we crossed paths." Garrett's expression was sympathetic. "IEDs were bad that year. Lost a lot of good men. Your dad was one of the best." "Liar." The words screamed in Scarlet's head, but her face remained neutral, politely interested, nothing more. "I was 10, she said. "Don't remember much about that time." "Probably for the best. War's not something kids should have to think about." Garrett straightened. "Listen, if you need anything, supplies, equipment, whatever, you come find me. My office is Building 9. Always happy to help Roland's daughter." "I appreciate that, Senior Chief." "Wade," he corrected with a smile. Then he glanced at her laptop. "Working late?" "Just getting oriented, reviewing protocols, medical inventories. Want to be ready if we get called up." "That's the spirit." Garrett nodded approval. "Well, don't stay too late. Even dedicated sailors need sleep. Welcome aboard, Lieutenant." He left. Scarlet waited until his footsteps faded down the corridor. Then she waited another 5 minutes. Then she calmly closed her laptop, locked it in her desk, and walked to the bathroom. Only there, with the door locked and water running to cover any sound, did she allow herself to react. Her hands started shaking, not from fear, from rage so pure and consuming, it felt like touching a live wire. She'd just shaken hands with her father's killer, smiled at him, made polite conversation, and every second of it, she'd wanted to drive her thumbs into his eyes and not stop until she felt brain matter. But she didn't. Because grandfather Yuri had taught her patience, had taught her that revenge was a dish best served with meticulous planning and no room for error. Scarlet looked at herself in the mirror. Green eyes, freckles, auburn hair, pretty face that made people underestimate her. Good. Let them underestimate. Let Garrett think she was just Roland's naive daughter, playing at being a sailor. Let him think she was no threat. He'd learn different. Eventually. But not tonight. Tonight she splashed cold water on her face, dried off, and went back to work. The next morning, Scarlet reported to Medical Bay at 0600. The compound was already alive with activity. SEALs running PT in full gear. Weapons drills at the range. The constant background noise of men preparing for war. She was updating trauma kit inventories when Kozlowski appeared in the doorway. He looked different, less cocky, more professional. "Lieutenant," he said, no mockery in his voice. "Senior Chief Garrett asked me to run some supplies over. We got new hemostatic gauze in, once it distributed to medical and individual kits." Scarlet looked up. "How many units?" 40. She checked her inventory list. "We should have 60. Contract was for 60 units. Kozlowski frowned. Manifest says 40. Check the original purchase order. He pulled out his tablet, scrolled through screens. His frown deepened. You're right, PO says 60, but delivery manifest shows 40. 20 missing. Combat loss? Scarlet asked, keeping her voice neutral. Can't be. This is brand new stock, just arrived stateside. Kozlowski looked confused. That's weird. Probably just paperwork error. Happens all the time with supply chain. Scarlet made a note. I'll check with Senior Chief Garrett, make sure we get the missing units. Want me to ask him? No, I'll handle it. Thanks for bringing it to my attention, Petty Officer. Kozlowski hesitated. Then, listen, ma'am, about yesterday, the comments. That was out of line. I apologize. Scarlet studied him. He looked genuinely uncomfortable. Why the change of heart? Commander Morrison had a talk with us last night, reminded us that professional conduct means treating everyone with respect, regardless of... He stopped. Regardless of what? My gender? My size? The fact that I'm pretty? Kozlowski had the grace to look embarrassed. All of the above, ma'am. Petty Officer Kozlowski, I don't need apologies. I need you to do your job. If you can do that, we're good. If you can't, request a transfer. Clear? Clear, ma'am. Then we're done here. He left. Scarlet made a note about the missing hemostatic gauze. 20 units. Retail value about $400. Not huge money, but it was the pattern that mattered. 40 units ordered, 60 invoiced, 20 disappear. Garrett pockets the difference or sells them. Multiply that across hundreds of supply orders over 28 years, and you had millions. She spent the morning setting up a comprehensive tracking system. Every supply order, every delivery, every item distributed, she'd find the leaks, document them, build evidence that couldn't be ignored. At 1200, Morrison appeared. Lunch, he said. Let's walk. They left the building, headed toward the waterfront. March in San Diego meant perfect weather. 70 degrees, clear skies, ocean breeze. Beautiful day for ugly conversations. Morrison waited until they were well away from anyone who might overhear. Garrett came to see you last night, he said. Not a question. Yes, sir. How did you know? Because I've been watching him for 18 years. I know his patterns. New sailor arrives, especially one connected to someone he killed. He makes contact early. Tests them. Gauges threat level. Morrison's eyes scanned the area constantly. Old habits. What did he say? Scarlet recounted the conversation verbatim. Morrison listened without interrupting. He's probing, Morrison said when she finished. Seeing if you suspect anything. Looking for tells. You did good keeping it professional. I wanted to kill him. I know. I wanted to kill him for 18 years. But we need him alive. We need him to confess. We need evidence that'll stand up in court. Morrison stopped walking, turned to face the ocean. I've got something to show you. Not here. Tonight. My place. Off base. Can you get away? Yes, sir. 2100 hours. I'll text you the address. He pulled out a small device, no bigger than a car key fob. Take this. Press the button if you're in danger. It's a panic alarm. GPS tracker. I'll come running. Scarlet pocketed it. You really think Garrett's that dangerous? I think he's killed at least one person we know about, probably more. I think he's built a multi-million-dollar criminal empire inside the U.S. military. I think if he realizes you're a threat, you'll have an accident within 48 hours. Morrison's voice was flat. So yes, I think he's that dangerous. They walked back in silence. Scarlet returned to work. The afternoon passed in routine tasks. Medical training with a squad of new SEALs. Equipment checks. Protocol reviews. Normal, boring work that let her mind wander. She thought about her father. Not the sanitized memories, the bedtime stories, the piggyback rides, the patient teaching, but the real memories, the ones she'd locked away for 18 years. Roland Vaughn coming home from deployment with haunted eyes, waking up screaming from nightmares, drinking too much some nights, staring at nothing, the weight of violence carried home from distant wars. But also, Roland teaching her to shoot when she was 8, not a toy gun, a real Beretta M9, showing her proper stance, trigger control, breathing, making her understand that weapons weren't toys, that violence was a tool, nothing more, nothing less. Roland telling her about honor, about doing the right thing even when it cost everything, about protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. Roland's last words to her, before his final deployment, "Kat, if anything happens to me, I need you to promise something. Be strong, be smart, and never let anyone make you believe you're less than you are. You hear me?" She'd promised. She'd kept that promise. At 2100 hours, Scarlet drove off base in her personal vehicle, a 10-year-old Honda Civic, unremarkable and forgettable. Morrison's address led to a small house in Imperial Beach, 10 miles south of Coronado. Working-class neighborhood, modest homes, quiet streets. Morrison answered the door, checked the street behind her, then let her in. The house was Spartan, military neat, no decorations, no personal touches, just functional furniture and the bare minimum for living. The home of a man who'd spent 37 years deployed more than stateside. "Kitchen," Morrison said. In the kitchen, spread across the table, was 18 years of obsession. Files, documents, photographs, charts, timelines, equipment manifests, financial records, deployment rosters, after-action reports, a map of the world with red pins marking locations. "This is everything," Morrison said. "Every piece of evidence I've collected, every suspicious incident, every equipment discrepancy, every financial anomaly." He gestured at the map. Red pins are locations where Garrett was present during equipment losses or suspicious deaths. Scarlet counted 43 pins: Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Somalia, training bases stateside, a trail of breadcrumbs across 2 decades of war. "How many deaths?" she asked. "Connected to Garrett? Can't prove causation, but there are patterns. 17 in Ramadi, April 2006. 8 in Kandahar, September 2011. 12 in Syria, March 2018. All told, 63 deaths where Garrett was present and circumstances were questionable. 63, Scarlett's voice was hollow. Could be coincidence. Could be wrong place, wrong time. But your father makes 64. And I don't believe in coincidence anymore." Morrison pulled out a thick file. "This is Roland's case. Everything I know about April 4th, 2006. Scarlet opened it. The first page was an autopsy report. Clinical, detailed, horrifying. Subject: SCPO, Roland Vaughn, USN. Cause of death: gunshot wound, cranial. Entry: posterior skull, base of occipital bone. Trajectory: upward angle, 15 degrees. Projectile: 5.56 by 45 millimeters. NATO: fragmentary recovery. Manner: homicide. The word homicide had been crossed out, changed to combat casualty, initialed by someone whose signature Scarlet couldn't read. "Who changed it?" she asked. "I don't know. That's the problem. The investigation was shut down before I could find out." Morrison pulled out more documents. "But look at this. Financial records. Garrett's personal accounts. I got these through a contact at FinCEN, Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. Took me 3 years. The records showed regular deposits. Not huge amounts. 5,000 here, 8,000 there, 12,000, 15. Irregular intervals. No obvious pattern, but over 28 years, it added up. $4.2 million, Morrison said, deposited into various accounts. Cayman Islands, Switzerland, Singapore, laundered through a dozen shell companies, all leading back to one source. What source? Defense contractor called Aegis Maritime Solutions. They provide security services, equipment procurement, logistics support. 47 million in DoD contracts over the past 15 years. Morrison tapped the file. CEO is Garrett's brother-in-law. Company vice president is Garrett's cousin. It's a family business. Scarlet looked up from the files. He's not just stealing equipment, he's selling it through a company that has official DoD contracts. He's using government money to buy from himself. Exactly. It's brilliant in a horrifying way. Aegis buys equipment from manufacturers, sells it to DoD at markup. Garrett steals the same equipment, sells it back to Aegis. They resell it again. Triple dipping. Government pays twice, Garrett pockets the difference. And when someone notices, like my father, they have an accident. Morrison's voice was grim. Roland found the equipment discrepancies, started asking questions. Next day, dead. I'm guessing he wasn't the first. Scarlet spent the next 2 hours going through everything. The evidence was damning. Circumstantial, yes, but overwhelming in volume. Any investigator with half a brain would see the pattern, which raised the obvious question. Why hasn't anyone stopped him? She asked. You've got all this. Why not take it to NCIS, JAG, someone? I did, 4 times. Morrison's laugh was bitter. 2007, right after Roland died. Investigation opened, closed within a week. 2011, after Kandahar, same result. 2015, different approach, went through JAG, case dismissed. 2019, tried FBI. They referred it back to Navy jurisdiction and it disappeared. Someone's protecting him. Someone with serious pull. Someone who can shut down investigations at the federal level. Morrison met her eyes. I've got theories. No proof. But I think it goes higher than Garrett. I think he's part of a network. How high? Flag officer level. Maybe higher. Scarlet felt cold spreading through her chest. How do we fight that? Carefully, quietly, and with evidence they can't ignore. Morrison pulled out one more file. This is what I've been working on. A financial trail that bypasses military channels entirely. SEC violations, tax evasion, wire fraud, crimes that fall under civilian jurisdiction, crime that even flag officers can't make disappear. You're going after him through the IRS and the SEC and FinCEN. I've got contacts in all three. People who don't give a shit about military chain of command. People who care about money laundering and tax fraud. Morrison smiled without humor. Al Capone didn't go down for murder. He went down for taxes. Same principle. Scarlet looked at the evidence spread across the table. 18 years of work. Thousands of hours. One man's obsessive quest for justice. What do you need me to do? She asked. Right now? Nothing. Stay safe. Do your job. Don't make Garrett suspicious. Morrison started gathering files. I'm close. Maybe 6 months from having enough for the SEC to act. But I need you to be my insurance policy. How? If something happens to me, if I have an accident, if I disappear, all of this goes to you. Digital copies are in an encrypted cloud account. Access codes are in my will. You become the custodian of the evidence. You finish what I started. Nothing's going to happen to you, Commander. You don't know that. Garrett's killed before. He'll kill again if he feels threatened. Morrison fixed her with a hard stare. Promise me. If I go down, you see this through. You make sure Roland's death meant something. Scarlet thought about her father, about grandfather Yuri's deathbed instructions, about 18 years of preparation for this exact moment. I promise, she said. They spent another hour reviewing details. Morrison showed her how to access the encrypted files, gave her contact information for his sources at SEC, FinCEN, FBI, explained his filing system, his methodology, his approach. By the time Scarlet left, it was past midnight. She drove back to base slowly, checking her mirrors constantly. no tail, no suspicious vehicles, just late-night Southern California traffic. But she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Back in her quarters, Scarlet couldn't sleep. She sat on her bunk, her father's K-bar knife in her hands, and thought about the mission ahead. Garrett had been operating for 28 years, had killed her father and probably dozens more, had stolen millions, had corrupted the military from within, and he'd done it all while wearing the uniform, while pretending to be a man of honor. It was obscene. But what Morrison didn't know, what Scarlet hadn't told him, was that she wasn't just here to gather evidence. She was here to make Garrett pay. Not with prison, not with official justice. That was Morrison's way, the proper way, the by-the-book approach. But Scarlet had learned different lessons. From grandfather Yuri, from years of training in arts designed to kill, from 18 years of cold rage burning in her chest like radioactive fuel. She would help Morrison build his case, would gather evidence, would do everything right. But if the system failed, if Garrett walked free because some admiral made a phone call, then Scarlet would do what needed doing. She would become what her grandfather had been, what the war had made him, a hunter, a killer, justice with a human face. The K-bar blade gleamed in the dim light of her quarters. Her father's blood still stained the handle, evidence of a crime that would never see official justice, unless she made it happen. Scarlet rewrapped the knife, locked it away, and finally slept. She dreamed of Ramadi, of a dusty street, of her father turning to face someone he trusted, of the moment of betrayal, of the shot that ended everything. In the dream, she was there. She saw the shooter's face, Wade Garrett, smiling. Scarlet woke at 0500 with her hands clenched into fists and murder in her heart. She showered, dressed, and reported for duty. Just another day at the office. Just another step closer to revenge. 3 days passed like a held breath. Scarlet worked her shifts in the medical bay with mechanical precision. Trauma kits organized, protocols updated, training sessions with SEAL candidates who looked at her with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. She smiled when appropriate, spoke when necessary, played the role of competent but unthreatening junior officer. And every spare moment, she dug deeper. The missing hemostatic gauze was just the beginning. Once she knew what to look for, the pattern became obvious. 20 units of tourniquets ordered, 15 received. 50 morphine auto-injectors requisitioned, 38 in inventory. Chest seals, pressure bandages, IV supplies, all showing the same consistent shrinkage. Not enough to trigger automated alerts, just enough to be profitable. Garrett was careful, professional. He'd been doing this for nearly 3 decades, and he'd learned exactly how much he could steal without raising flags. But he'd never had someone with Scarlet's specific skill set examining his operation. 8 years in naval intelligence had taught her pattern recognition that went beyond simple audits. She could see connections that normal supply officers would miss. She built spreadsheets, cross-referenced purchase orders with delivery manifests with inventory counts, tracked serial numbers on high-value equipment, followed the paper trail through layers of bureaucratic misdirection, and slowly the picture emerged. Garrett wasn't working alone. He had help in the supply chain, someone at the distribution center who signed off on short deliveries, someone in accounting who approved inflated invoices, someone in procurement who rubber-stamped purchase orders without verifying quantities. A network, just like Morrison suspected. On the 3rd night, Scarlet was working late again. The medical bay had become her sanctuary, quiet, organized, a space where she could think without the constant presence of men who either wanted to test her or protect her. She was updating her encrypted files when her terminal pinged. An email, no subject line. Sender address was a string of random characters. She almost deleted it as spam. Then she noticed the encryption signature. Morrison. Scarlet opened it. One line of text. Need to talk. Now. Usual place. She checked the time. 21:47 hours. Late for a meeting, even by Morrison's standards. But the message was clear. Something had happened. Scarlet locked her terminal, grabbed her keys, and headed for the parking lot. The base was quiet at this hour, most personnel already off duty or on night watch. She passed a few sailors, nodded politely, kept walking. Her Civic was parked in its usual spot, under a broken light that she'd specifically chosen for the extra shadow. She clicked the unlock button, opened the driver's door, and stopped. Something was wrong. Not visibly wrong. The car looked normal, undisturbed. But Scarlet had developed instincts over the years, the kind of hyper-awareness that kept soldiers alive in war zones. And those instincts were screaming. She crouched down, peered under the chassis with her phone's flashlight. There, attached to the undercarriage near the fuel tank, a small black box about the size of a deck of cards, 2 wires leading to the battery compartment. GPS tracker. Scarlet's heart rate didn't spike. She'd expected this. Garrett was paranoid, Morrison had said. Of course he'd put surveillance on her. The question was, how long had it been there? She stood, got in the car, started the engine, drove normally off base. No evasive maneuvers, no indication she'd noticed anything wrong. Let whoever was watching think she was oblivious. But her mind was racing. If Garrett was tracking her movements, he knew about her visits to Morrison's house, knew they were meeting, knew they were working together, which meant Morrison was compromised, which meant the message might not be from Morrison at all. Scarlet pulled into a 7-Eleven 2 miles from base, parked, went inside, bought a coffee she didn't want, came back out, used the brief privacy to pull out the panic button Morrison had given her. She pressed it, once, held for 3 seconds. The device vibrated briefly. Signal sent. If Morrison was still alive, still in control, he'd know she'd been spooked, would take appropriate precautions. If he wasn't, if the message was a trap, at least there'd be a record of her last known location. Scarlet got back in her car and drove toward Morrison's house. But she took a different route this time, circuitous, through residential neighborhoods, watching her mirrors constantly. No tail that she could see, but with GPS tracking, they didn't need to follow closely. She parked 3 blocks from Morrison's house, got out, walked the rest of the way on foot, staying in shadows, moving quietly. The neighborhood was dark, quiet, working people asleep before early shifts. Morrison's house showed no lights. That was wrong. If he'd summoned her, he'd be awake, waiting. Scarlet circled the block, approached from the back. The yard was small, enclosed by a wooden fence. She vaulted it silently, landed in a crouch, stayed low. The back door was ajar. Definitely wrong. She pulled out her phone, switched it to silent, used the camera to peer through the crack. The kitchen was dark, empty, no movement visible. Scarlet pushed the door open slowly. No creak. Morrison kept his hinges oiled. Old SEAL habit. She slipped inside, back against the wall, eyes adjusting to the darkness. The house was silent, but it was the wrong kind of silent, not peaceful, tense, like a held breath. She moved through the kitchen into the living room. Still nothing. No signs of struggle, no disturbance. But the table where Morrison had spread his evidence was empty, completely clear. Not a single file, not a photograph, not a note. Either Morrison had packed everything away, or someone had cleaned the scene. Scarlet's hand went to her pocket. She didn't carry a gun off duty, regulations, but she had her phone. And she had 18 years of hand-to-hand combat training. A floorboard creaked upstairs. She froze. Someone was in the house. Scarlet's training took over. She moved to the stairs, tested each step before committing weight. Slow, silent. Sistema taught economy of movement. No wasted motion, no sound. The upstairs hallway was dark. 2 doors, one open, bathroom, one closed, bedroom. Another creak from the bedroom. Scarlet reached the door, pressed her ear against it, listened, breathing, heavy, pained. She turned the knob slowly, pushed the door open. Morrison was on the floor, propped against the bed. Blood on his face, more blood on his shirt, spreading from his shoulder. His Sig Sauer P226 was in his hand, pointed at the door. When he saw Scarlet, the gun lowered. "Cat," he said. His voice was thick, slurred. "Shouldn't have come." Scarlet was across the room in 2 seconds, dropped to her knees beside him. Her hands went to his shoulder automatically, assessing the wound. Gunshot. Through and through. High shoulder, probably missed major vessels, but he'd lost blood. A lot of it. "What happened?" she asked, already pulling off her jacket to use as pressure bandage. "Ambush." Morrison's breathing was labored. "Downtown, gas lamp quarter. Was meeting my NCIS contact. 3 men, professionals. Garrett's people? Had to be." Morrison winced as Scarlet applied pressure. "They were good, ex-military, knew what they were doing. I got one, wounded another. Third one had me pinned when..." He stopped, looked at her with something like wonder. "When what?" "When someone dropped out of the fucking sky and saved my life." Scarlet's hand stilled. "What?" Morrison laughed, then groaned. "Fire escape. This woman came out of nowhere, dropped 12 feet, took out the shooter with one move. I've never seen anything like it. She fought like..." He stopped again, stared at Scarlet. "Sistema," he said slowly. "Russian martial art. Fluid movements, no wasted motion. Exactly like what your grandfather would have taught you." Scarlet said nothing. "It was you," Morrison said. "You followed me. How did you know?" "I found the GPS tracker on my car. Figured if Garrett was watching me, he was watching you too. Followed at a distance." She resumed applying pressure to his wound. "Good thing I did." "The message wasn't from you, I figured. That's why I hit the panic button." Morrison managed a weak smile. "Smart girl. Your father would be proud. Save the sentiment. We need to get you medical attention. No hospitals. Too many questions. Garrett has people everywhere. Commander, you've been shot. You need proper treatment. You're a combat medic. Treat me." Scarlet wanted to argue, but he was right about the hospitals. Gunshot wound would trigger police reports, questions, investigation. And if Garrett had people in the right places, Morrison would be dead before morning. "Fine," she said, "but we're not doing this here. This location is compromised." "Where?" "I know a place." "Can you walk?" "Can I walk?" Morrison snorted. "I'm a SEAL, Cat. I've walked on worse than this." He proved it by standing up, swayed slightly, but stayed vertical. Scarlet steadied him, then grabbed a few essential items. Morrison's go bag, his laptop, the Sig Sauer. They left through the back door. Scarlet half-carried Morrison the 3 blocks to her car, got him in the passenger seat, drove. Not to base, not to a hospital, but to a storage unit facility in National City, 20 minutes south, the kind of place that charged by the month and didn't ask questions. Morrison had rented one 6 months ago, told Scarlet about it during one of their planning sessions. A backup location. Somewhere to go if everything went sideways. Everything had just gone sideways. The storage unit was 10 by 15, climate-controlled. Inside, Morrison had staged supplies. Water, MREs, first aid kit, sleeping bag, burner phones, cash. Everything you'd need to disappear for a while. Scarlet got Morrison inside, locked the door behind them, set up a battery-powered LED lantern, laid him down on the sleeping bag. "Okay," she said, opening the first aid kit. "This is going to hurt. Everything hurts already. Do your worst." She did. Cleaned the wound with antiseptic that made Morrison's jaw clench. Examined the entry and exit holes. Clean through and through, just like she thought. No bullet fragments. No major vessel damage. Lucky. She packed the wounds with hemostatic gauze, applied pressure bandages, wrapped his shoulder tight. Not as good as a hospital, but good enough to keep him alive. Morrison's breathing steadied. Color started returning to his face. He'd lost blood, but not enough to be critical. "You're better at this than most corpsmen I've worked with," he said. "I've had practice." Scarlet sat back, wiped blood off her hands. "Tell me exactly what happened." Morrison recounted the evening. Meeting with NCIS Special Agent Whitaker at a bar in Gaslamp Quarter. Quiet conversation in a back booth. Transfer of files. Digital copies of everything Morrison had collected. Insurance policy. "Whitaker's good people," Morrison said. 20 years NCIS, incorruptible. "I figured even if Garrett had people in Naval Criminal Investigative Service, Whitaker wasn't one of them." "Was he compromised?" "Don't think so. We were careful. Varied locations. No electronic communications. Old-school tradecraft." Morrison's eyes were distant, replaying events. "I left through the back. Alley shortcut to the parking garage. That's when they hit me." "Describe them." 3 men, 30s to early 40s, fit, professional kit, black tactical gear, suppressed weapons, MP5 for close quarters, SR-25 for the guy on the fire escape. "Military?" "Former. I'd bet money they're contractors. Probably ex-SOF. They moved like it, used hand signals. Coordinated assault." Scarlet listened, building a mental picture. "You said you got one?" "Knife. Roland's K-bar." Morrison gestured to the blade on his belt. "I always carry it. Felt right to use it tonight." "And the second?" "SIG. Double tap. Center mass. Body armor absorbed it but put him down. That's when the third shooter got me." Morrison touched his shoulder. "Bastard had the SR-25, 7.62 round. Grazed my ribs, went through my shoulder. I was pinned. Done." "He had execution angle." "Then I showed up. Then you dropped out of the goddamn sky like a vengeful angel." Morrison's laugh was genuine this time. "Where did you learn to move like that?" "Grandfather Yuri. He started training me when I was 6. Sistema isn't just martial art. It's survival methodology. How to fall from height without injury. How to use momentum instead of strength. How to end fights in seconds instead of minutes." "You ended that fight fast. I saw the guy go down." "What did you do?" Scarlet thought back. The moment she'd seen Morrison pinned. The cold clarity of decision. The 12-foot drop from the fire escape. Time slowing down the way it always did in combat. "Flying knee to the temple," she said. "Stripped his MP5 during the fall. Landed in a roll. Transitioned to shooting position. Suppressive fire on the sniper. He flinched. I moved. Got to his position. Disarmed him hand to hand. Sleeper hold until he lost consciousness." Morrison stared at her. "Jesus Christ." "What?" "I've been a SEAL for 37 years. I've worked with the best warriors in the world, and I've never seen anyone move like you just described. You were busy bleeding." "I was busy watching you turn into a weapon." Morrison's voice was quiet. "Your father was good, Kat. Really good. One of the best operators I ever served with. But you're something else entirely." Scarlet looked away. She didn't want to talk about this, didn't want to examine what she'd become. She'd spent 18 years building herself into a tool designed for one specific purpose: killing Wade Garrett. Everything else, the medical training, the Navy commission, the professional competence, that was just camouflage. The real her was what Morrison had seen in that alley: a predator, a hunter, something her grandfather had crafted in the image of his own dark past. "The attackers," she said, changing the subject. "What happened to them?" "2 dead, 1 wounded but escaped." Morrison closed his eyes. "You killed them, Kat. Both of them." She had. The knee strike to the temple had crushed the first attacker's skull. The sleeper hold on the second had gone too long. She'd felt the moment his neck vertebrae separated. She'd killed 2 men tonight, and she felt nothing about it. "They were trying to murder you," Scarlet said. That's not killing, that's protecting. I know. I'm not judging. I'm just. Morrison opened his eyes. I'm realizing that you're not the scared 10-year-old I carried away from Roland's funeral. You're not even the competent medic who showed up 3 days ago. You're something I didn't expect. What's that? Dangerous. They sat in silence for a moment. The storage unit was cold, clinical, a concrete box with artificial light and the smell of old cardboard. Outside, San Diego went about its evening. People in restaurants, couples on dates, family watching TV, normal life. Inside this box, two people sat covered in blood, planning how to bring down a killer. The wounded attacker, Scarlet said. Did you get a good look at him? Good enough. Caucasian, blonde hair, scar on his left cheek, 6 feet, 190. Scarlet pulled out her phone. I'm going to sketch him. Tell me if I get it right. She spent the next 10 minutes drawing from Morrison's description. When she showed him the result, he nodded. That's him. Almost exactly. Scarlet saved the image. I'll run facial recognition. See if I can ID him. How? You don't have access to those databases anymore. You transferred out of intelligence. I still have friends in the community, people who owe me favors. She pocketed the phone. But first we need to figure out what this means. It means Garrett knows we're investigating him. More than that, it means he's scared enough to order hits, which means we're close to something he can't afford to have exposed. Scarlet's mind was working through implications. The timing matters. What did you give to Agent Whitaker tonight? Everything. Digital copies of all my files, the equipment audits, the financial records, the deployment correlations, 28 years of evidence. And Garrett knew about the meeting? Impossible. We were careful. No electronic communications. We set this up 3 weeks ago in person. Then either Whitaker is compromised or Garrett has surveillance we didn't detect. Scarlet thought about the GPS tracker on her car. He's watching us. Has been for days at least. Probably longer. Morrison's face went grim. If he's watching, he knows about this storage unit too. No, I disabled the tracker before we drove here. Pulled it off my car, stuck it on a delivery truck heading to Tijuana. Scarlet allowed herself a small smile. If Garrett's watching the GPS feed, he thinks I'm currently crossing the Mexican border. Smart. But it only buys us time. Hours maybe. Once Garrett realizes the tracker is moving wrong, he'll know something's up. Scarlet stood, paced the small space. We need to move, get you somewhere safe, then figure out our next move. There is no safe, not anymore. Morrison struggled to sit up. Garrett just tried to kill me, failed, which means he'll try again, and harder. We can't run from this. So what do you suggest? We go on offense, hit him before he hits us again. Scarlet stopped pacing. How? Morrison reached for his laptop, winced at the movement, but got it open. While you were treating my shoulder, I was thinking. Garrett made a mistake tonight, a big one. What mistake? He used contractors, professional killers. That's a paper trail. These guys don't work for free. Someone paid them. Someone arranged the contract. Someone gave them our location, our schedule, our patterns. Morrison pulled up files. Money leaves traces, always, and I know where to look. He showed Scarlet a network of financial accounts, shell corporations, offshore banks, money laundering routes she recognized from her intelligence days. Aegis Maritime Solutions, Morrison said. Garrett's brother-in-law's company. I've been tracking their finances for 3 years. Every contract, every payment, every wire transfer. And tonight, someone authorized a large withdrawal. How large? $225,000, wired to an account in the Cayman Islands at 1847 hours, 3 hours before the attack. Morrison's smile was predatory. That's contractor rates for a hit. $75K per shooter, standard pricing. Scarlet leaned over his shoulder, examining the transfer details. Can we trace the receiving account? Not directly. Caymans have strict banking privacy laws, but I've got a contact at FinCEN who owes me. She can request information through official channels. That'll take days. Normally, yes, but not if we tell her this is connected to active attempted murder. Morrison started typing. I'm sending her everything, the transfer details, photos of my gunshot wound, your sketch of the attacker, everything. Will she act on it? Rebecca knows how to follow money. She's a bloodhound when it comes to financial crimes. Morrison hit send. There, done. She'll have it in 30 seconds. Scarlet absorbed this. Things were moving fast now, faster than she'd anticipated. The careful, methodical investigation had just become a race against time. What about Agent Whitaker? She asked. NCIS. You gave him everything. Is he going to act? He said he'd present it to his supervisor tomorrow morning, start an official investigation. Morrison's expression was skeptical. But official investigations take time, paperwork, chain of command. By the time NCIS moves, Garrett could be gone. Or we could be dead. That too. They looked at each other, understanding passing between them without words. They were committed now, past the point of turning back. Garrett had tried to kill Morrison and failed, which meant the next attempt would be more aggressive, more direct, more lethal. They had maybe 48 hours before Garrett made his next move. We need leverage, Scarlet said. Something that forces Garrett to act rashly, make mistakes. What kind of leverage? The one thing he cares about more than money or freedom. Scarlet met Morrison's eyes. His reputation, his legacy, 37 years of service, medals, honors, the respect of his peers. That's what he's protecting. Not just his criminal operation, his identity as a warrior. Morrison considered this. You want to threaten his reputation? I want to destroy it, publicly, completely. Make him so desperate to protect his image that he comes after us directly. Scarlet's voice was cold. And when he does, we'll be ready. That's risky. Everything's risky now. We're past careful. We're into endgame. Morrison studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. Okay, how do we do it? Scarlet thought about the files Morrison had compiled. 28 years of evidence, equipment theft, financial fraud, suspicious deaths, all carefully documented but never publicly revealed. What if it wasn't secret anymore? We leak it, she said, anonymously, to media, to military watchdog organizations, to congressional oversight committees. Everything you've collected, everything we know, put it out in the open where Garrett can't bury it. That'll trigger official investigations. Exactly. NCIS, JAG, FBI, SEC. Everyone will be looking at him. He can't kill all of them, can't make it all disappear. He'll be backed into a corner. Cornered animals are dangerous. So are we. Morrison was quiet for several heartbeats then. Your father would hate this plan. Why? Because it puts you in direct danger, uses you as bait. Roland spent your whole childhood trying to keep you safe from his world. This does the opposite. My father's dead because he tried to do things the right way, trusted the system, believed justice would prevail. Scarlet's voice was hard. The system failed him. The system buried his murder. The system protected his killer for 18 years. I'm done trusting the system. So what are you trusting? Myself, my training, and the fact that Wade Garrett is going to make a mistake when he's desperate. She looked Morrison in the eye. You taught me something tonight, Commander. In that alley, when you were bleeding and pinned and about to die, you didn't give up. You kept fighting. That's the SEAL way, right? Never quit. Never quit, Morrison agreed quietly. Then we don't quit now. We push forward. We take the fight to Garrett, and we don't stop until he's in prison or dead. Morrison was silent for a long time. Outside the storage unit, cars passed on the street. Normal people living normal lives. oblivious to the war being planned in a concrete box 20 feet away. Finally, Morrison spoke. Okay, we do it your way, but with conditions.
What conditions?
1. We don't move until I can walk without bleeding through my bandages. I'm no good to you half dead. Agreed. 2. We bring in backup, people I trust, other SEALs who knew your father, who believe what we're telling them. Scarlet hesitated. That's risky. More people means more chances for leaks. It also means we don't face Garrett's whole network alone. You saw what happened tonight. 3 professional contractors.
That's what he can field on short notice.
What do you think he can do with 48 hours to prepare? He had a point. Who did you have in mind? Chief Petty Officer Marcus Donovan, sniper, best I've ever worked with, served with your father in Ramadi, knows Garrett is dirty but never had proof. Can we trust him? With my life. Have trusted him with my life, dozens of times. Morrison's voice was certain. Marcus is solid, old school, believes in honor and duty. If we show him the evidence, he'll join us. Anyone else? Lieutenant Commander Sarah Reeves, JAG Corps, defense attorney, sharp as hell and hates corruption. She'll know how to handle the legal angles once this breaks open. Scarlet processed this. 2 more people, 2 more variables. But Morrison was right, they needed help. Garrett had resources, connections, money. He could field teams of contractors, could call in favors from people they didn't even know about. Fighting that alone was suicide. Okay, she said, we bring them in, but carefully, one at a time, controlled environment, and they don't know about me until we're sure they're committed. Agreed. Morrison pulled out a burner phone, one of several he'd staged in the storage unit, dialed a number from memory. Marcus, it's Bull. Yeah, I know it's late. Listen, I need you to do something for me. No questions. Can you get to the storage unit in National City? The one I told you about 6 months ago. Good. Come alone. Don't tell anyone. And Marcus, bring your rifle. Yeah, that kind of situation. See you in 30. He hung up, made another call. Sarah? Morrison, I need a lawyer. No, not for me, it's complicated. Can you meet me somewhere secure? I'll text you the address. 1 hour. And Sarah, this is the big one. The thing I've been working on for 18 years. Yeah, that thing. See you soon. He put the phone down, looked at Scarlet. Done. They're coming. Marcus in 30 minutes, Sarah in an hour. You trust them that much? To come on nothing but your word? I trust them with my life, which is what I'm doing right now. Morrison's eyes were steady. In the teams, trust isn't optional. It's survival. You learn fast who's solid and who isn't. These 2 are solid. Scarlet nodded. She understood that kind of trust, had seen it in her father. The brotherhood that formed between people who'd faced death together. She just hoped Morrison's trust wasn't misplaced. 28 minutes later, there was a knock on the storage unit door. 3 quick raps. Pause. 2 more. A code. Morrison called out, "Enter." The door opened. A man stepped inside. Chief Petty Officer Marcus Donovan was 46 years old and looked like he'd been carved from granite. 6'1", 200 pounds, most of it muscle and scar tissue. Dark hair going gray at the temples. Gray eyes that missed nothing. He carried a rifle case and a go bag. When he saw Morrison's bandaged shoulder, his expression didn't change. Just absorbed the information, processed it, moved on. Bull, he said, you look like shit. Good to see you too, Marcus. Donovan's eyes shifted to Scarlet, assessed her in about 2 seconds, came to conclusions she could see forming behind his gaze. This is Lieutenant Vaughn, Morrison said. Roland's daughter. Something flickered across Donovan's face. Surprise, then recognition, then something that might have been respect. You look like him, Donovan said, around the eyes. So I've been told. Roland was a good man, best point man I ever worked with. Donovan set down his rifle case. I was there when he died. Ramadi. April 4th, 2006. Scarlet's pulse kicked up a notch. You were there? Different team, but we were operating in the same area. Heard about the IED on the radio. Saw them bring his body back. Donovan's voice was flat, controlled. Except there was no IED damage, no blast pattern. I said something about it, got told to shut up. Never sat right with me. It wasn't an IED, Morrison said. It was murder. Shot in the back of the head. 5.56 NATO round. M4 carbine. Donovan's jaw tightened. Who? Senior Chief Wade Garrett. The temperature in the storage unit seemed to drop 10 degrees. Donovan went very still. The kind of stillness that comes before violence. You're sure? He asked quietly. I've spent 18 years building the case. I'm sure. Show me. Morrison opened his laptop, spent the next 40 minutes walking Donovan through everything. The equipment audits, the financial records, the pattern of suspicious deaths, the deployment correlations. Every piece of evidence meticulously documented. Donovan listened without interrupting. His face showed nothing. But Scarlet watched his hands. They'd clenched into fists about 10 minutes in. Stayed that way. When Morrison finished, Donovan was quiet for a long moment. Then, what do you need? We're going to expose Garrett, publicly, force investigations he can't shut down. But he's already tried to kill me once tonight. He'll try again. We need someone watching our backs. You've got me. Donovan's voice was flat, certain. What else? Can you shoot? Can I? Donovan almost smiled. Bull, I've got 217 confirmed kills across 4 deployments. I can shoot. Good, because when Garrett realizes what we're doing, he's going to send people after us. Professional contractors, ex-military, probably former SOF. How many? Unknown. Tonight was 3. Next time could be 6. Could be 12. Donovan opened his rifle case. Inside was a custom-built SR-25 sniper rifle. Match-grade barrel, high-end optics, suppressor. Then we'll need good positions, he said. Overlapping fields of fire, clear egress routes, and someone needs to be on overwatch at all times. That's where you come in. What about her? Donovan gestured at Scarlet. No offense, Lieutenant, but you're a medic. This goes loud, you need to be somewhere safe. With respect, Chief, I'm the one who saved Commander Morrison's life tonight, killed 2 contractors, disabled a 3rd, so perhaps you should worry less about my safety and more about tactical coordination. Donovan's eyebrows rose slightly. He looked at Morrison. She's not exaggerating, Morrison said. I saw it, He paused, searching for words. She's got skills that go beyond medical. What kind of skills? Sistema, Russian martial art, trained by her grandfather, former NKVD. Morrison met Donovan's eyes. She dropped 12 feet from a fire escape, took out an armed contractor with a flying knee strike, disarmed a sniper in close quarters, and extracted me from a hot zone, all in under 3 minutes. Donovan studied Scarlet with new eyes. NKVD. Jesus, the Soviet secret police? He defected in 1975, Scarlet said. But yes, he was NKVD interrogator during and after World War II. He taught me things the military doesn't teach. I bet he did. Donovan's tone wasn't mocking now. Okay, you're not a liability. Good to know. But I still don't like civilians in the kill zone. I'm not a civilian. I'm a naval officer, and this is my fight more than anyone's. Garrett killed my father. All the more reason to keep you safe. Revenge makes people sloppy. Does it look like I'm sloppy? Scarlet's voice was ice. Donovan held her gaze for a few seconds, then nodded slowly. Point taken. Okay, Lieutenant, you're in, but you follow my calls on tactical. I've been doing this for 26 years. You defer to experience. Agreed, as long as your experience doesn't include getting Commander Morrison shot again. Donovan actually smiled at that. Small, brief, but genuine. "I like her," he said to Morrison. "She's got Roland's fire. She's got more than that." Another knock at the door. Different pattern. 2 quick, pause, 3 slow. Morrison called, "Enter." Lieutenant Commander Sarah Reeves stepped into the storage unit. Mid-30s, 5'6", athletic build. Dark hair pulled back in a professional bun. Sharp brown eyes that took in the scene. Morrison's bandaged shoulder. Donovan's rifle. Scarlet's blood-stained clothes. And drew instant conclusions. "You look like you've had an interesting evening," she said. "That's one word for it." Morrison made introductions. "Sarah, this is Lieutenant Scarlet Vaughn, Roland's daughter." Reeves' expression softened slightly. "I knew your father."
Not well, but enough to know he was a good man.
"I'm sorry for your loss." "Thank you, ma'am." "Don't ma'am me. We're on the same side here." Reeves turned to Morrison. "You said this was about the thing you've been working on for 18 years. I assume you mean the Wade Garrett investigation." Morrison blinked. "You knew about that?" "Bull, I'm a JAG officer. Defense attorney. I've been watching you build this case for years. You're not as subtle as you think." She pulled out a tablet. "I've also been doing my own investigation. Independent. Different angle. You want to compare notes?" For the next hour, they synchronized information. Morrison's financial evidence. Reeves' legal analysis. Donovan's first-hand observations from deployments. Scarlet's recent discoveries in the equipment audits. The picture that emerged was damning. Wade Garrett had been running a criminal enterprise for 28 years, stealing equipment worth tens of millions, laundering money through defense contractors, and killing anyone who got too close to the truth. At least 64 confirmed deaths connected to his operations, probably more that couldn't be proven. "This is enough for prosecution," Reeves said. "More than enough. Multiple felonies, UCMJ violations, federal crimes. The evidence is solid." "Then why hasn't anyone acted?" Scarlet asked. "Because someone's protecting him. Someone high up. Someone with enough influence to shut down investigations before they start." Reeves pulled up files on her tablet. "I've tracked 7 separate inquiries into Garrett over the past 18 years, all terminated within days. Orders coming from flag officer level." "Which flag officer?" "That's the problem. The orders are signed by different people each time. Sometimes it's the base commander, sometimes NAVSpec Warcom. Once it was SecNav office. Like whoever's protecting Garrett has connections throughout the chain of command." Morrison leaned forward despite his injury. "Or there's one person coordinating all of them. Someone with enough pull to get multiple flag officers to sign off." "That's my theory too, but I can't prove it. Every time I get close, the trail goes cold." "What about tonight?" Donovan asked. "Garrett sent contractors to kill Bull. That's attempted murder. New crime. Fresh investigation." "Except we can't prove Garrett ordered it," Reeves said. "We have financial transfers from Aegis Maritime to a Cayman account. We have 3 dead or wounded contractors who won't talk, but no direct link to Garrett himself. The money came from his brother-in-law's company, which he doesn't control, not on paper. His name isn't on any corporate documents. He's just Senior Chief Garrett, humble SEAL, who happens to have family in the defense industry." Reeves' frustration was evident. "It's brilliant, legally speaking. Layers of insulation, plausible deniability at every level." "So what do we do?" Scarlet asked. "We force his hand," Morrison said. "Make him act personally. Get him to do something we can directly attribute to him." "How?" "We leak everything. Tomorrow. All the evidence, all the files. Send it to media, congressional oversight, military watchdogs. Make it impossible to ignore. When that happens, Garrett will panic. He'll make mistakes, and we'll be there to catch them." Reeves considered this. "It's risky. Once the information is public, we lose control of the narrative. Could trigger premature prosecutions that fail. Could alert Garrett's protectors before we're ready." Could also save our lives, Donovan pointed out. Right now, Garrett thinks he can kill us quietly, make it look like accidents or combat casualties. But if the evidence is already public, killing us becomes counterproductive, makes him look guilty.
Unless he doesn't care anymore,
Scarlet said quietly. Unless he's so desperate to protect his legacy that he's willing to burn everything down to take us with him. They all looked at her. She's right, Morrison said. We need to consider that possibility. Garrett's 58, retiring in 3 weeks. This is his endgame too. If we expose him, he loses everything. His pension, his reputation, his freedom. Men like that, cornered, desperate, they don't surrender. They fight to the death. Good, Donovan said flatly. I hope he does. Makes the targeting solution simpler. We're not executioners, Reeves said sharply. We're trying to bring him to justice, legal justice, courts and trials and prison. With respect, ma'am, legal justice failed Roland Vaughn 18 years ago, failed 63 other dead men. Maybe it's time for a different kind of justice. That's not how this works. That's exactly how this works when the system is corrupted from the inside. The argument might have escalated, but Morrison raised his hand. Enough. We're not deciding Garrett's fate tonight. We're deciding our next move. And that move is to protect ourselves while gathering the final pieces of evidence we need for airtight prosecution. What final pieces? Reeves asked. Direct testimony. Someone who worked with Garrett, who saw the operation from the inside. Someone who can testify that Garrett personally ordered equipment theft and murder. You think someone like that exists? I think Garrett's network is bigger than one man. He had help. People who facilitated shipments, signed false documents, looked the other way. Some of them are probably still active. And if we can find one, flip one, we've got our case. Scarlet had been quiet, thinking. Now she spoke. The wounded contractor from tonight, the one who escaped, he's a loose end. Garrett will want to tie him up. Meaning? Meaning if we can find him first, we might be able to turn him. Get him to testify against whoever hired him. Donovan shook his head. Contractors don't flip. Professional code. They'd rather go to prison than rat out clients. Everyone flips under the right pressure, Scarlet said. It's just a matter of finding the right leverage. You sound like your grandfather, Morrison observed. I'll take that as a compliment. Reeves was making notes on her tablet. Okay, hypothetically, if we found this contractor, convinced him to talk, got testimony about who hired him, that's conspiracy to commit murder. Federal crime, civilian jurisdiction, can't be buried by military brass. Exactly, Morrison said. That's our play. Find the contractor, get his testimony, force civilian prosecution that can't be stopped. How do we find him? Donovan asked. The city's got 3 million people. He could be anywhere. He's wounded, Scarlet said. Bull shot him. He needs medical attention, but he can't go to a hospital without triggering gunshot wound reports to police. So he goes somewhere off books. Black market doctor, Reeves said. There are a few in San Diego. Handle criminal injuries, no questions asked. Can you get a list of locations? I can ask around, discreetly. Reeves made more notes. But even if we find him, then what? We can't exactly kidnap him. That's illegal. In that testimony, we don't kidnap, Morrison said. We negotiate. Offer him immunity in exchange for testimony. Through official channels. You're JAG. You can make that happen. I can propose it. Whether the prosecutor accepts is another question. They'll accept if the testimony leads to a bigger fish. Garrett's not just some contractor. He's a 28-year conspiracy, racketeering, murder, corruption at the highest levels. Any prosecutor would trade one hired gun for that. Reeves nodded slowly. Okay, I'll start reaching out to contacts. See if anyone knows where wounded contractors go for treatment. But this needs to happen fast, before Garrett finds him first. Agreed, Morrison said. We move tomorrow. Sarah, you track the contractor. Marcus, you set up overwatch positions. Cover our movements. Scarlet, I'm going back to base, Scarlet said. Everyone looked at her. Are you insane? Morrison asked. Garrett just tried to kill me. He knows we're investigating. Going back makes you a target. I'm already a target, and if I disappear right after you get shot, Garrett knows something's wrong, knows we're coordinating. But if I show up for my shift like nothing happened, act normal, stay visible, I'm more valuable as an intelligence asset than hiding. It's too dangerous. Everything's dangerous now. At least this way I can watch Garrett, see how he reacts, maybe catch him making mistakes. Donovan considered this. She's not wrong. Having someone inside, watching the target, that's standard surveillance protocol. Surveillance protocol doesn't usually involve putting a 28-year-old woman in the same building as a serial killer, Morrison said. I'm not asking permission, Commander. Scarlet's voice was firm. I'm telling you what I'm doing. You can support it or not, but I'm going back. Morrison looked like he wanted to argue. Then he caught the expression in her eyes. The same expression her father used to get when his mind was made up. God damn it, he said. You really are Roland's daughter. Yes, sir, I am. Fine, but conditions. You check in every 4 hours. Burner phone. If you miss a check-in, we come for you. And you wear a wire. Everything Garrett says, we record. Agreed. Reeves pulled a small device from her bag. Audio recorder. Looks like a fitness tracker. Garrett won't notice it. Records up to 72 hours continuous. Encrypted storage. She handed it to Scarlet, who strapped it on her wrist. Anything else? Scarlet asked. Yeah, Donovan said. He pulled a small pistol from his go bag. Sig Sauer P365. Compact, concealable. Take this. Keep it on you at all times. If Garrett or anyone else makes a move, you defend yourself. Don't hesitate. Scarlet took the weapon, checked the magazine. 15 rounds, one in the chamber. She press-checked it professionally, then tucked it into her waistband. Thank you, Chief. Don't thank me, just stay alive. They spent another 30 minutes coordinating details, communication protocols, check-in times, emergency extraction procedures, backup plans for the backup plans. By the time they finished, it was past 300. Scarlet needed to be on base by 600 for her shift. She left the storage unit, drove back toward Coronado. The city was quiet at this hour, empty streets, dark buildings, the calm before dawn. But Scarlet didn't feel calm. She felt like a spring wound too tight, ready to snap, ready to unleash 18 years of compressed rage in one explosive moment. Soon, she told herself, soon Garrett would pay for what he'd done. And when that moment came, she'd be ready. She'd been ready for 18 years. Scarlet reported for duty at 0600 sharp. The medical bay was exactly as she'd left it. Organized, clean, professional, like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. She went through her morning routine with mechanical precision. Inventory check, equipment testing, protocol review. All the normal tasks that kept SEAL Team 5's medical operations running smoothly. And all the while, the SIG P365 pressed against her lower back, hidden under her uniform blouse. The audio recorder, disguised as a fitness tracker, blinked silently on her wrist, capturing every sound. Kozlowski appeared at 0730 with supply requisitions. He looked tired, probably been up late doing whatever young SEALs did when they weren't training or deploying. Morning, Lieutenant, he said. Professional now, respectful. The mockery from 4 days ago seemed like ancient history. Got the new trauma kit requests. Commander Morrison approved them before... He stopped. Awkward silence. Before what? Scarlet asked, keeping her voice neutral. Before he went on emergency leave. Medical issue, I heard. Nothing serious, but he'll be out for a week or so. Kozlowski shifted uncomfortably. Senior Chief Garrett's running things until he gets back. Of course he was. I see, Scarlet said. Well, let me look at those requisitions. She spent the next 20 minutes reviewing paperwork while Kozlowski waited. Everything looked normal. Standard equipment orders, nothing suspicious. But she photographed every page with her phone anyway, building her evidence file. When Kozlowski left, Scarlet allowed herself a moment to breathe. Morrison on emergency leave was their cover story. Meant he was safely hidden somewhere, recovering from his gunshot wound. Good. But it also meant Garrett was in command, which meant she was in the lion's den alone. The morning passed slowly. Medical training with a squad of new candidates, a SEAL with a sprained ankle from PT, routine vaccinations, boring, normal work that kept her hands busy and her mind wandering. She thought about Morrison's plan. Leak the evidence, force investigations, back Garrett into a corner until he made mistakes. But part of her wanted something different, something darker, something grandfather Yuri would have understood. She wanted Garrett to know, wanted him to understand exactly who she was and why she'd come, wanted to see the moment of recognition in his eyes when he realized Roland Vaughn's daughter had spent 18 years becoming the weapon that would destroy him. That wasn't professional. That wasn't smart. That was pure, distilled revenge. And it felt right in a way that official justice never could. At 1200, Garrett appeared in the medical bay doorway. He looked the same as always, friendly, approachable, the kind of senior NCO that junior sailors trusted. Smile lines around his eyes, open body language, nothing that suggested he'd ordered a hit on Morrison less than 24 hours ago. "Lieutenant Vaughn," he said warmly, "how are you settling in?" "Very well, Senior Chief, thank you for asking." Scarlet's voice was perfectly professional. The audio recorder on her wrist captured every word. "Glad to hear it. Listen, I wanted to talk to you about Commander Morrison. I'm sure you heard he's on medical leave." "Yes, Senior Chief. Petty Officer Kozlowski mentioned it. Nothing serious, but the commander needs some rest. Doctor's orders, which means I'll be handling command responsibilities for the next week or so." Garrett stepped into the bay, casual and relaxed. "If you need anything, any support or resources, you come to me directly, okay?" "Understood, Senior Chief." "Good." He glanced around the organized bay. "You've done impressive work here. Really impressive. We were overdue for this kind of overhaul." "Just doing my job, Senior Chief." "Well, you're doing it exceptionally well." Garrett's smile was genuine, warm. If Scarlet didn't know better, she'd think he actually meant it. "Your father would be proud. Roland always emphasized attention to detail. You clearly inherited that." The mention of her father sent ice through Scarlet's veins, but her face didn't change, didn't show the rage boiling underneath. "Thank you, Senior Chief. That means a lot." "I mean it. Roland was one of the best SEALs I ever served with. Losing him in Ramadi was—" Garrett shook his head. "It was a hard day, for all of us." "Liar, murderer, butcher." The words screamed in Scarlet's head. But what came out of her mouth was, "I appreciate you sharing that, Senior Chief. I don't have many memories of him from that deployment. I was only 10. 10 years old, Jesus. That's young to lose a parent." Garrett's expression was sympathetic, practiced. "How did you cope?" "My grandfather raised me. He was supportive. Ukrainian, right? I remember Roland mentioning him. Old school guy, tough. Very tough, Senior Chief. Must have been hard for him too, losing his son-in-law." He managed. Scarlet met Garrett's eyes. "He taught me that grief is just love with nowhere to go. So you channel it into purpose, into making the lost person's life mean something. That's wise. Your grandfather sounds like a smart man." "He was. He died 6 months ago." "I'm sorry to hear that." Garrett's sympathy appeared genuine. "So you've lost both of them now. Your father and your grandfather. That's a heavy burden." "It is, but it's also motivating." Scarlet kept her voice steady. "It reminds me why I'm here, why I serve, to honor their memory, to finish what they started." Something flickered across Garrett's face, too quick to identify. Then it was gone, replaced by the friendly smile. That's the right attitude, he said. Service is about legacy, about being part of something bigger than ourselves. Your father understood that. Sounds like your grandfather did too. They both did, Senior Chief. Well, if you ever need to talk about anything, my door is always open. Literally. Building 9, Office 217. I know what it's like to carry loss. Sometimes it helps to share the weight. I appreciate that, Senior Chief. I really do. Garrett nodded, turned to leave, then stopped as if remembering something. Oh, one more thing. I'm doing a complete equipment audit next week. End of fiscal year stuff. Boring paperwork, but necessary. I'll need your medical inventory counts by Friday. Think you can have that ready? Of course, Senior Chief. I've already got most of it documented. Just need to finalize a few categories. Excellent. See? Attention to detail. Your father all over again. Garrett smiled one more time. Keep up the good work, Lieutenant. He left. Scarlet waited until his footsteps faded down the corridor. Then she pulled out her burner phone and texted Morrison a code phrase. Lion visited the den. The response came 30 seconds later. Status? Green. Recording obtained. Good. Maintain position. Check in at 1600. Scarlet pocketed the phone and returned to work, but her mind was racing. Garrett had been fishing, testing her. The conversation seemed casual, but it was anything but. He'd mentioned her father twice, her grandfather once. Watched her reactions carefully, looking for tells, for signs that she knew more than she should. And the equipment audit, that wasn't routine. That was Garrett preparing to scrub evidence. Clean up discrepancies before anyone could document them. Probably his final act before retirement in 3 weeks. She needed to photograph every piece of equipment, every serial number, every inventory count before Friday. Build a snapshot that couldn't be altered later. Scarlet spent the afternoon doing exactly that. Photographed equipment, recorded serial numbers, cross-referenced delivery manifests, built a comprehensive database that would show exactly what was missing and when it disappeared. At 1600, she checked in with Morrison. All clear. At 2000, she finished her shift and returned to her quarters, and found her room had been searched. It was subtle, professional. Most people wouldn't have noticed, but grandfather Yuri had taught Scarlet how to mark her space. Tiny indicators that would reveal intrusion. A hair across the doorframe, dust particles arranged in specific patterns on her desk, books aligned at precise angles. All of them had been disturbed. Someone had gone through her belongings, carefully, methodically, looking for something. Scarlet checked her laptop, encrypted and password protected. Her phone, same. Her personal items, nothing missing, nothing obviously tampered with. But they'd been here, in her space, violating her privacy. She pulled out the burner phone and texted Morrison. Nest compromised, search conducted. The response was immediate. Extract now. Abort mission. Scarlet stared at the message. Every tactical bone in her body said Morrison was right. If Garrett was bold enough to search her quarters, he was preparing to move against her. Staying was suicide. But extracting meant abandoning the mission, meant giving up her position inside Garrett's operation, meant losing the intelligence advantage. She texted back, negative, maintaining position, will take precautions. Morrison's response was a string of angry emojis, followed by, your father would kill me for allowing this. My father's dead because someone played it safe. I'm not making that mistake. A long pause, then, you're impossible, fine, but you miss one check-in, I'm coming for you, with Donovan, and we're bringing firepower. Understood, we'll check in every 2 hours until further notice. Scarlet pocketed the phone and considered her options. Someone, probably Garrett or one of his people, had searched her room. They didn't find anything incriminating because she kept all sensitive materials encrypted or off-site. But the search itself was a message. We're watching you. We know you're a threat. Back off. She wasn't going to back off. Instead, she was going to set a trap. Scarlet spent the next hour planting false evidence in her room, documents that looked sensitive but were actually harmless, encrypted files that appeared to contain investigation details but were just random data, breadcrumbs that would lead Garrett in the wrong direction if he came back. Then she palmed the SIG P365, tucked it into her jacket, and went for a walk around base. Night on Naval Amphibious Base Coronado was quiet, but never truly dark. Security lights, patrol vehicles, the constant low hum of a military installation that never fully slept. Scarlet walked with no apparent destination, just a junior officer stretching her legs after a long shift. But she was mapping the base, identifying sightlines, escape routes, places where an ambush could happen, places where she could turn the tables if someone tried. She'd made 3 circuits of the compound when she noticed the tail. Not obvious, professional, a sailor in PT gear jogging about 50 yards behind her, maintaining distance, matching her pace. When she turned, he turned. When she stopped, he found a reason to stop. Scarlet kept walking, led her tail toward the waterfront, where the base met San Diego Bay. Fewer lights here, more shadows, better terrain for what she had in mind. When she reached the pier, she stopped, leaned against the railing, looked out at the water like she was enjoying the view. The jogger stopped too, pretended to stretch, watching her from 30 yards away. Scarlet counted to 30, then turned and walked directly toward him. He saw her coming, tried to act natural, continued his stretches, but his body language changed. Tensed, ready for confrontation. Scarlet stopped 10 feet away. "You're following me," she said, not a question. The jogger straightened. Up close, she could see he was mid-30s. Fit, hard eyes, military posture even in civilian PT gear. Probably former SOF himself. "Just out for a run, ma'am," he said. "At 2100 hours, following the exact same route I'm walking. For the past 20 minutes. Scarlet's voice was calm, professional. "Who sent you?" "I don't know what you're talking about." "Then you won't mind if I report this to base security. Possible stalking incident. They take that seriously these days." The jogger's expression hardened. "I'd advise against that, Lieutenant." "Why?" "Because it would be unfortunate if you attracted the wrong kind of attention." There it was, the threat, barely veiled, delivered with the confidence of someone who thought he had all the power. Scarlet smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. "Tell Senior Chief Garrett that I don't scare easily. Tell him that if he wants to talk to me, he can do it directly instead of sending errand boys. And tell him that following me around base is harassment, and I'm documenting every instance." She pulled out her phone, took a photo of the jogger. He flinched, raised a hand too late. "Delete that," he said. "No. Delete it or what? You'll assault a commissioned officer on a military base? Go ahead. Try. See how that works out for you." The jogger's jaw worked. He was calculating, wondering if she was bluffing, wondering how much trouble he'd be in if this escalated. Scarlet didn't give him time to decide. "We're done here," she said. "Tell your boss I got his message. Now go away before I really do call security." She turned and walked away, didn't look back, kept her hand near the SIG P365 in her jacket, ready if he made a move. He didn't. When she was back in her quarters 20 minutes later, she checked in with Morrison. Lion sent a dog, confronted and dismissed. "Jesus Christ, Cat, are you trying to get killed?" "No, trying to make Garrett nervous. Nervous people make mistakes. Nervous people also kill threats. Let him try." Morrison didn't respond for a full minute. Then, "You're going to give me a heart attack before this is over." "Better a heart attack than a bullet." "That's not reassuring." Scarlet smiled despite the tension. "Get some rest, Commander. I'll check in at 2300. She spent the next 2 hours reviewing the footage from her wrist recorder. The conversation with Garrett was pure gold. His mentions of her father, his offer of support, his casual questions that were actually intelligence gathering. But more than that, she'd captured his voice, his cadence, his speech patterns. If they ever got him on tape admitting to crimes, they'd have baseline recordings to prove it was really him. She uploaded everything to the encrypted cloud server Morrison had set up, added her equipment photographs, updated the investigation timeline. The case was building, slowly, carefully, one piece of evidence at a time. But it wasn't fast enough. Garrett was retiring in 3 weeks. Once he left the Navy, he'd be harder to touch, might disappear, might activate emergency plans to destroy evidence, might eliminate witnesses. They needed to move faster. At 2300, Scarlet checked in again. All clear. Morrison reported that Reeves had located 3 possible black market doctors who treated criminal injuries. Donovan was surveilling them, looking for the wounded contractor. Progress. But would it be fast enough? Scarlet was about to sleep when her burner phone buzzed. Text from Morrison. New intel. Call me. Secure line. She stepped into the bathroom, ran the shower for noise cover, and dialed. Morrison answered on the first ring. We've got a problem. What kind of problem? Rebecca at FinCEN came through. Trace the payment to the contractors. It goes deeper than we thought. How deep? The Cayman account that received the $225,000? It's connected to 17 other accounts, shell corporations, offshore holdings. Total network value is over $200 million. Scarlet absorbed that. Garrett's been at this longer than we thought. Not just longer, bigger. The network includes people we haven't identified yet, possibly other SEALs, possibly officers. We're looking at a conspiracy that goes back 30 years and involves dozens of people. How is that possible? How could something that big stay hidden? Because everyone involved has a vested interest in silence. They're all complicit, they all benefit, and they all know that if one person talks, everyone goes down. Morrison's voice was grim. This isn't just Garrett. This is institutional corruption at a level I didn't think was possible. Scarlet's mind raced through implications. If it's that big, we can't fight it alone. No, we can't, which is why I've made a decision. Morrison paused. Tomorrow, everything goes public. All our evidence, every file, every document. I'm sending it to the Washington Post, New York Times, CBS News, and the Senate Armed Services Committee simultaneously. Once it's out there, it can't be buried. That'll trigger investigations, multiple investigations, criminal, congressional, inspector general, JAG, all of them competing for jurisdiction, all of them hungry for headlines. It'll be chaos. It'll also paint targets on our backs. Garrett and his network will know exactly who exposed them. They already know. Tonight proved that. At least this way, we go public before they kill us quietly. Make our deaths suspicious enough that investigators can't ignore them. It was sound logic, brutal, but sound. When? Scarlet asked. 600 tomorrow. Simultaneous release to all outlets. By 700, it'll be national news. By 800, the Navy will be in damage control mode. By noon, people will start getting arrested. What do you need me to do? Get off that base. Tonight. Come to the safe house. We're going to ground until the dust settles. Scarlet thought about Garrett, about the equipment audit he'd scheduled for Friday, about the opportunity to watch him squirm when his world collapsed. No, she said, I'm staying. Kat, I want to be here when he finds out. I want to see his face. I want him to know that I was part of bringing him down. That's revenge talking, not tactics. Maybe, but I've spent 18 years waiting for this moment. I'm not going to miss it. Morrison was silent for a long moment. Then, your father was stubborn too, got him killed. My father was cautious, played by the rules, trusted the system, and got shot in the back for it. Scarlet's voice was hard. I'm not making his mistakes. Fine, but you will take precautions, body armor, concealed weapon, emergency extraction plan, And Donovan sets up Overwatch position with eyes on your building, non-negotiable. Agreed. And if things go sideways, if Garrett or anyone else makes a move, you run. You don't try to be a hero. You don't try to finish this yourself. You run, and you let us handle it. Scarlet thought about the promise she'd made to herself at her father's funeral, about 18 years of preparation, about becoming the weapon designed to destroy Wade Garrett. "I'll run," she lied. "Promise." Morrison didn't sound convinced. "Check in every hour starting at 0600. Every hour, Cat. If you miss one, we're coming in loud." "Understood." She hung up. "Check the SIG P365. 15 rounds plus one in the chamber. Not much if things went really bad, but enough to make someone regret attacking her." Scarlet set her alarm for 0500, lay down on her bunk, tried to sleep. Instead, she thought about her father, about the last time she'd seen him alive, about the promise she'd made to herself at his funeral. Tomorrow, she'd start keeping that promise. The alarm woke her at 500. Scarlet showered, dressed in uniform, strapped on body armor under her blouse. The SIG P365 went into a concealed holster at her lower back. The audio recorder stayed on her wrist. She looked like a normal naval officer reporting for duty, but she was armed for war. At 0545, she texted Morrison, "In position, ready." At 0600, Morrison sent one word, "Sent." Somewhere in New York and Washington, D.C., journalists were opening encrypted emails, reading through hundreds of pages of evidence, seeing the scope of corruption laid bare. Within the hour, phones would start ringing, questions would start being asked. The machinery of exposure would grind into motion. Scarlet reported to the medical bay at 0600 exactly. The base was waking up, SEALs running PT, support staff arriving for day shifts, normal military rhythm. But nothing was normal anymore. At 0630, Kozlowski burst into the medical bay. His face was pale. "Lieutenant, have you seen the news?" "What news?" "Turn on the TV, any channel. It's everywhere." Scarlet pulled up a news site on her laptop. The headline hit her like a physical blow. "Massive corruption scandal rocks Navy SEALs. $200 million theft ring exposed." Subheadline: Senior naval officials implicated in 30-year equipment fraud and money laundering scheme. She clicked the article, skimmed the text. The Washington Post had published everything. Every document Morrison had collected, every financial record, every suspicious death, all of it laid out in devastating detail. Other outlets were picking it up: New York Times, CNN, Fox News, Military Times. Everyone running the same story with slightly different angles. The Navy's worst nightmare: public exposure of systemic corruption. And right at the center, Senior Chief Wade Garrett. Scarlet looked up at Kozlowski. "This is big. Big. Lieutenant, this is a fucking atomic bomb. They're naming names, showing evidence. The CNO is probably shitting himself right now." Kozlowski ran a hand through his hair. "And Senior Chief Garrett, they're saying he's been stealing equipment for 30 years, that he might have killed people who found out. Do you believe it?" Kozlowski hesitated. "I don't know what to believe, but there was always something off about the equipment audits. Numbers that didn't quite match, gear that disappeared. We just figured it was normal military inefficiency. But this," he gestured at the screen, "this says it was deliberate, organized, criminal." The medical bay door slammed open. Garrett stood in the doorway. His face was red, veins visible on his forehead, hands clenched into fists. He looked at Scarlet, then at Kozlowski. "Out," he said to Kozlowski. "Senior Chief, I said out, now." Kozlowski looked at Scarlet. She nodded slightly. He left, closing the door behind him. Garrett and Scarlet were alone. He stepped into the bay, moved toward her slowly. His whole body was vibrating with barely controlled rage. "You," he said. "This was you." Scarlet's hand drifted toward her concealed weapon. I don't know what you're talking about, Senior Chief. Bullshit. You and Morrison, you've been building this, gathering evidence, planning this exposure. Garrett's voice was low, dangerous. I knew something was wrong when you showed up. Roland's daughter. 18 years after I killed him. Too much coincidence. There it was. The confession. Clear, unambiguous. And the audio recorder on Scarlet's wrist captured every word. You're admitting you murdered my father, Scarlet said calmly. I'm admitting I did what was necessary. Roland found out about the operation. He was going to report it, destroy everything I'd built. So I eliminated the threat. Garrett's smile was cold. Same thing I'm going to do with you. You can try. Oh, I'm going to do more than try. See, the difference between you and your father is that Roland had people who'd miss him, who'd ask questions. You're just a junior officer on her first assignment. No family, no close friends. If you disappear, who's going to care? Commander Morrison will care. Morrison's a dead man. He just doesn't know it yet. My people are tracking him right now. Within 24 hours, he'll have a tragic accident. Then it's just you. Alone. Vulnerable. Scarlet's hand was on the SIG P-365 now. Hidden behind her body. Safety off. Finger along the frame. You're finished, Garrett. The evidence is public. Investigations are already starting. Even if you kill me, even if you kill Morrison, you can't stop what's coming. Maybe not, but I can make sure you don't live to see it. Garrett reached behind his back. Scarlet drew the SIG P-365 and fired in one smooth motion. The shot was perfect. Center mass. Textbook defensive shooting. But Garrett was wearing body armor under his uniform. The round hit his chest, knocked him back, but didn't penetrate. He recovered fast, pulled his own weapon, a Glock 19, raised it towards Scarlet. She dove behind a medical cabinet as he fired. 3 shots. 2 hit the cabinet. 1 shattered a glass storage case behind where she'd been standing. Scarlet's training took over. Sistema taught dynamic movement. Never stay still. Never be where the enemy expects. She rolled left, came up firing. 2 rounds. Both hit Garrett's shoulder. He grunted, staggered, but didn't drop. The medical bay door burst open. Kozlowski, Torres, and Walsh rushed in, weapons drawn. Freeze! Kozlowski shouted. Both of you! Weapons down! Garrett turned his Glock toward the 3 SEALs. Get out. This doesn't concern you. Like hell it doesn't, Torres said. We heard gunfire. You're shooting at a commissioned officer. Drop the weapon, Senior Chief. She's a traitor. She's the one who leaked those files. She's trying to destroy the teams. The files say you're a thief and a murderer, Walsh said. His weapon didn't waver. Drop it. Now. Garrett's eyes darted between the 3 young SEALs and Scarlet, calculating odds, realizing he was outnumbered. This isn't over, he said to Scarlet. Then he dropped his Glock and raised his hands. Kozlowski moved in fast, kicked the Glock away, zip-tied Garrett's hands behind his back. You're making a mistake, Garrett said. I'm your Senior Chief. She's nobody. Just Roland Vaughn's little girl playing soldier. Roland Vaughn was a good man, Kozlowski said. If you killed him, you're going to pay for it. Base security arrived 2 minutes later. Naval Criminal Investigative Service showed up 10 minutes after that. By 07:30, the medical bay was a crime scene. Evidence markers, photographers, investigators taking statements. Scarlet gave hers calmly, methodically, explained everything. The investigation, the evidence, the confrontation, Garrett's confession, and the audio recorder on her wrist had captured it all. Special Agent Whitaker, Morrison's NCIS contact, was the lead investigator. He listened to the recording 3 times. This is admissible, he said. He confessed to murder, threatened you, attempted murder. We've got him. What about the network? Scarlet asked. The other people involved? We're already making arrests. 23 officers detained for questioning this morning. More coming. The whole thing is falling apart. Whitaker looked at her with something like respect. You and Commander Morrison did good work. 18 years of corruption exposed in one morning. My father did the work. I just finished it. Roland would be proud. Scarlet felt something loosen in her chest. Relief, grief, exhaustion. 18 years of single-minded focus suddenly released. It was over. Garrett was in custody. The evidence was public. Justice was finally happening. She stepped outside the medical bay, pulled out her burner phone, texted Morrison. Lion caged, confession recorded, it's done. The response came immediately. Thank Christ, you okay? Shaken but unharmed, where are you? Safe house, Donovan's here. Reeves too. Come join us. We're watching the news coverage, it's beautiful. Scarlet smiled. On my way. The next 72 hours passed in controlled chaos. NCIS sealed off the medical bay as a crime scene. Investigators combed through every detail. Garrett's office was raided, boxes of documents seized, computers impounded, financial records subpoenaed. Scarlet gave her statement 6 times, each iteration more detailed than the last, each investigator looking for inconsistencies that never came, because she was telling the truth. All of it. Morrison emerged from hiding on day 2, his gunshot wound documented, arm still in a sling but healing, his testimony corroborating Scarlet's. The pieces fitting together into an unassailable narrative. By day 3, the dominoes were falling faster than anyone could count. Garrett's brother-in-law arrested, his cousin detained, the CEO of Aegis Maritime Solutions in federal custody, 23 naval officers suspended pending investigation. The media called it the biggest military corruption scandal in decades. Inside the Navy, they called it a reckoning. She drove to the storage unit in National City. Morrison, Donovan, and Reeves were crowded around a laptop, watching news coverage. CNN was showing footage of Navy officials being escorted out of buildings in handcuffs. The Pentagon had issued a statement promising full cooperation with all investigations. The Secretary of Defense was holding a press conference. It was chaos. Beautiful, justified chaos. Morrison looked up when Scarlet entered. His shoulder was heavily bandaged, arm in a sling. The wound was healing but still raw. He moved carefully, favoring his left side, but his eyes were clear, focused. The exhaustion of the past week replaced by something that looked like peace. You did it, he said. We did it, Scarlet corrected. No, you did the hard part. You went back into danger. You confronted Garrett. You got the confession. Morrison stood carefully, winced slightly, then pulled Scarlet into a careful, one-armed hug. Your father would be so damn proud. Scarlet felt tears threatening, pushed them down. He would have wanted justice done right, through the system. This is what he would have wanted. Maybe, but I think he also would have wanted you safe, and you took one hell of a risk. It was worth it. They watched the news for another hour. More arrests, more revelations, financial records being unsealed, victims' families being notified. The scope of the conspiracy becoming clear. 64 confirmed deaths linked to Garrett and his network. $200 million stolen. 30 years of corruption. All exposed in one devastating morning. What happens now? Scarlet asked. Reeves pulled up legal documents on her tablet. Criminal trials. Lots of them. Garrett alone faces 17 murder charges. Racketeering, fraud, conspiracy, theft of government property, and about 40 other felonies. He's looking at multiple life sentences. Will he actually serve them? Oh yes, the evidence is overwhelming. We have financial records, testimony from contractors, equipment audits, and now, thanks to you, a recorded confession to murdering Roland Vaughn. Reeves smiled grimly. He's done. They all are. Donovan was cleaning his rifle, methodical and focused. What about the flag officers, the ones who protected him? 3 admirals are already under investigation. More coming. This goes deep into naval command structure. Reeves scrolled through documents. It's going to take years to fully unravel, but the process has started. That's what matters. Scarlet sat down, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline that had been sustaining her for days was draining away, leaving her hollow.
Morrison noticed.
When's the last time you slept? Really slept? I don't remember. Then sleep now. We've got security. Donovan's on watch. You're safe here. Scarlet wanted to argue, wanted to stay awake, keep monitoring developments. But her body was shutting down. The combination of stress, violence, and 18 years of obsessive focus finally catching up. She lay down on the sleeping bag in the corner of the storage unit, closed her eyes, and dreamed of her father. In the dream, Roland Vaughn was alive, wearing his dress blues, smiling. "You did good, Kat," he said. "You kept your promise. I finished what you started." "No, you finished what I should have finished. I failed. You succeeded. That's the difference between us. I had help. Morrison, Donovan, Reeves, grandfather Yuri. And you had yourself, your training, your dedication, your refusal to give up." Roland's image started fading. "I'm proud of you, more than you'll ever know. But now you need to let me go. Stop living for revenge. Start living for yourself. I don't know how. You'll learn. You're smart. You're capable. You're my daughter. You'll figure it out." The dream dissolved. Scarlet woke 6 hours later. The storage unit was dim. Donovan was still there, sitting by the door with his rifle across his lap. Morrison and Reeves were gone. "They went to meet with NCIS," Donovan said quietly. "Formal depositions. They'll be back in a few hours." Scarlet sat up, rubbed her face. "Anything happen while I was out?" "Garrett's been arraigned, denied bail. He's in the brig at Miramar, maximum security." Donovan's voice was satisfied. "He's not getting out." "Good. Also, your name's been all over the news. Brave junior officer exposes corruption. Daughter brings father's killer to justice. You're going to be famous." Scarlet groaned. "I don't want to be famous." "Too late, you're a hero. Navy's going to want to use you for recruiting. Media's going to want interviews. You're about to find out what life in the spotlight feels like." "Can I go back to sleep instead?" Donovan actually smiled. "No, you've got a visitor." Before Scarlet could ask who, the storage unit door opened. A woman stepped inside, late 50s, gray hair, kind eyes, wearing civilian clothes but with military bearing. "Lieutenant Vaughn," she said. "I'm Captain Patricia Morrison, Bull's wife. He talks about you all the time." Scarlet stood, suddenly self-conscious. "Ma'am, I didn't know Commander Morrison was married. 32 years. He keeps me separate from his work, says it's safer that way. But today, I insisted on meeting you." Patricia moved closer. "I wanted to thank you for saving my husband's life. He told me what you did in that alley, how you fought off 3 armed men to protect him. I just did what needed doing, ma'am. You did what trained warriors do, and you're 28 years old. That's remarkable." Patricia's eyes were warm. "Bull also told me about your father, about Roland. I met him once, years ago. He was a good man. I'm sorry for your loss." "Thank you, ma'am. He'd be proud of you, what you've accomplished, how you've honored his memory." Patricia pulled out a small box. "Bull wanted me to give you this. He's been holding on to it for 18 years, waiting for the right time." Scarlet opened the box. Inside was a sealed Trident pin, worn, scratched, the gold plating rubbed away in places. "It was your father's," Patricia said softly. "Roland gave it to Bull the night before he died. Said if anything happened to him, Bull should keep it safe. Maybe give it to you someday, when you were old enough to understand what it meant." Scarlet's vision blurred. She blinked hard, trying to keep tears at bay. "He wanted you to have this," Patricia continued. "Wanted you to know that he loved you, that he was proud of you, That everything he did, every sacrifice he made, was so you could have a better life. Instead, I spent 18 years hunting his killer, and you succeeded. That takes dedication most people can't imagine. But now it's time for the next chapter. The chapter where you live for yourself instead of for revenge. It was almost exactly what Dream Roland had said. Scarlet held the Trident pin carefully, felt the weight of it, the history, the sacrifice it represented. 18 years. 18 years of rage and grief and single-minded determination. All of it crystallized into this small piece of gold. She thought about the 10-year-old girl who'd stood at her father's funeral, too angry to cry. The 16-year-old who'd learned the truth from grandfather Yuri and sworn revenge. The 28-year-old who'd walked into SEAL Team 5's compound with murder in her heart. All of them were still inside her, but they weren't her anymore. The mission was over. The hunt was done. Wade Garrett would die in prison, and Roland Vaughn's name would be cleared. What came next was hers to decide. "Thank you," she whispered, "for bringing this to me." Patricia smiled and left quietly, closing the door behind her. Scarlet stood holding her father's trident, feeling the connection across 18 years of death and grief and determination. After a moment, she pinned it to her uniform, right over her heart. Then she stepped outside. Morrison was leaning against his truck, looking older but also lighter somehow, like a burden had been lifted. "You kept this all these years," Scarlet said. "I promised Roland I would. Promised I'd give it to you when you were ready." Morrison's eyes were serious. "Are you ready, Kat?" "Ready for what?" "To be more than your father's daughter. To be your own person. To live your own life instead of finishing his." Scarlet thought about that. About 18 years of singular focus. About becoming a weapon designed for one specific purpose. About the emptiness that came after achieving a goal that had consumed her entire adult life. "I don't know who I am without this mission," she admitted. "Then you get to figure it out. And that's a gift. The gift your father died trying to give you. Freedom to choose your own path." "What if I choose wrong?" "Then you choose again. That's how life works," Morrison smiled. "But I'll tell you what I think you should do." "What?" "Stay in the Navy, but stop being a medic. Apply for Bud/S. Become a SEAL. Not because your father was one, but because you've got the skills and the dedication and the heart. You proved that in that alley. You proved it this whole week." Scarlet was shocked. "Women can't be SEALs." "Not yet, but that's changing. Policy reviews are happening. Within a year, maybe two, BUD/S will be open to qualified female candidates. And when it opens, you'll be first in line." "I'm 28. That's old for buds." "You're also in better shape than most 22-year-old candidates. You've got hand-to-hand combat skills that would embarrass most instructors. You've got real-world operational experience now. And you've got something most candidates don't have: unshakable determination." Scarlet imagined it. 6 months of the hardest training in the military. Hell Week, dive phase, land warfare. Becoming the warrior her father had been. Not to replace him, not to honor his memory, but to become her own version of excellence. "I'll think about it," she said. "Good, because the Navy's going to offer you a lot of options after this. Promotions, transfers, public affairs assignments. You could coast for the rest of your career on what you've done this week." Morrison met her eyes. "But that's not you. You don't coast. You excel. So find something that challenges you, something that scares you, something worth dedicating yourself to. Like hunting a killer for 18 years? Like becoming the best version of yourself." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Morrison pulled out his phone. "NCIS wants formal statements. Probably take a few days. But after that, you're free. Clean slate. Fresh start." He checked messages. "Also, the CNO wants to meet you. Pin some medals on you. Make speeches about integrity and honor. You okay with that?" "Do I have a choice?" Not really. When the chief of naval operations summons you, you show up. Scarlet sighed. Fine, but after that, I want some leave. Time to decompress. Figure out what comes next. Approved. You've earned it. Over the next 2 weeks, Scarlet lived in a blur of depositions, interviews, and ceremonies. NCIS took her statement 4 separate times. JAG interviewed her for their prosecution case. The Inspector General's office wanted her testimony for their internal investigation. She told the truth, all of it, held nothing back. Garrett and 17 other defendants were indicted on over 300 combined charges. The trials would take years, but the outcome was certain. The evidence was overwhelming. The CNO personally awarded Scarlet the Navy Cross in a ceremony at the Pentagon for extraordinary heroism and dedication to duty in exposing corruption and bringing criminals to justice. Morrison received the same award. So did Donovan and Reeves. The media coverage was intense. Scarlet's face was on the cover of Navy Times, Military Times, and Time magazine. The daughter who brought down an empire was the headline. She hated every second of it. But she endured, gave interviews when required, smiled for cameras when necessary, played the role of hero because it helped the prosecution's case. And all the while she thought about Morrison's suggestion. Bud/S, SEAL training, a new mission to replace the old one. 6 months later, policy changed. BUD/S, open to qualified female candidates. Scarlet was the first to apply. The instructors tried to break her. Hell Week nearly did. But every time she wanted to quit, she thought about her father, about grandfather Yuri, about 18 years of preparation. She didn't ring the bell. 23 weeks later, she graduated, top of her class, first female SEAL in Navy history. They pinned the Trident on her uniform in a ceremony at Coronado. Morrison was there, fully recovered. Donovan, too. Reeves, Patricia Morrison, dozens of SEALs who'd served with her father. And in Scarlet's pocket, she carried her father's original Trident, the one he'd given Morrison 18 years ago, the one that had traveled through death and grief and justice to come back to her. After the ceremony, she drove to Arlington National Cemetery, Section 60, her father's grave. She placed the new Trident on his headstone, right next to the old one. "I did it, Dad," she said quietly. "Became a SEAL. Not because of you, because of me, because I wanted to, because I earned it." The granite was silent, but Scarlet imagined she could feel approval, pride, love. Garrett got sentenced yesterday, life without parole. Leavenworth, he'll die in prison, so will the others. She touched the headstone. Justice took 18 years, but it came. You can rest now. A hand touched her shoulder. Scarlet turned. Morrison stood there, looking older but content. "Ready to go?" he asked. "Where?" "Celebration dinner. Team tradition. New SEAL graduates get taken out by their mentor. I'm buying." "You're not my mentor. You're my father's friend." "I'm both. And I promised Roland I'd watch over you. That means celebrating your accomplishments." Morrison smiled. "Besides, I want to hear about your first assignment. SEAL Team 7 is getting a new combat medic, one who can fight like a demon and save lives like an angel. They're lucky to have you." Scarlet looked back at her father's grave one last time. Then she turned away. The past was done. Justice was served. The mission was complete. Now it was time to live. Not for revenge, not for duty, not for anyone's expectations, but for herself, for the future she'd earned, for the warrior she'd become. Scarlet Vaughn walked away from the cemetery with Morrison at her side. Behind her, 2 tridents gleamed in the afternoon sun, father and daughter. Separated by 18 years of death, united by honor, the legacy complete. And somewhere, in the space between memory and hope, Roland Vaughn smiled. His daughter had kept her promise, had honored his sacrifice, had become something he'd never dared imagine. Not just a SEAL, not just a warrior, but free.